afternoon, all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. And I'm your host, Sal Greco. I hope everyone had a good weekend. These last couple of days, a lot of stuff has happened out there. So while you're all out there, folks, please, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like, share, subscribe button, hit that notification bell as well. If you're on Rumble, please hit that Rumble button, hit the like button. And if you're watching us live right now, streaming on X, please share this out to any and all in your friend group, or people maybe that don't, agree with you, or like we like to say, the low information crowd. There's a lot to discuss today, and I do have a good friend of mine who's going to give you quite the story about what's really going on behind the scenes. But before we get to that, something that did occur over the last couple of days, and John and Eric, who, by the way, it's good to see Eric Dim back on the Finest Unfiltered. So congratulations, on finally having Eric back. You know, he's been going through a rough time, but it's not the same without Eric. But with that being said, John and Eric and Marlon on the show covered this video that was, just to give you the background on this, Patrick Gordon, who's a lieutenant in the New York City Police Department, is the head of the Guardians Association. The Guardians Association, just another background on that, the original president was Eric Sanders, who we've had on the show, who did do a lot in his time as the president to back officers. He wasn't a rabble rouser, but boy, have the Guardians taking a nosedive since those days. So Patrick Gordon is a lieutenant, and here he is talking to, now this is the mayor. This is Eric Adams, okay? Just listen to what this rhetoric is and what he's talking about.
Concerns that I receive a lot is a lot of black members of the NYPD says that it feels like black and browns are under attack right now in the agency, right? Mm-hmm. And I know we had some issues that happened a couple of months ago, but we know the agency is 180 years old, and this is not the first time they've seen something unfortunate. But it seems like the response, and this is not my words, this is the words of over 2,000 paid members. They said it seems like that the response is that all blacks and all browns are, we're all, it's not in to be black or brown, right? And some of the things that they use that's being used is some of the demotion of black executives. We had Tariq Shepard, we had Paul Gamble, we had some Latinos that was out, we had Miguel Iglesias. So now I receive increased pressure, like, hey, what are you doing? What is the Guardians doing? Because it's just a feeling. It may be for a number of reasons, and they may not know the reasons. There's got to be things behind the scenes that we don't know. But the appearance is that. The second concern that I'm receiving highly is it appears that everything is a tie knot. Someone brought to my attention every promotion that we've had since January has had somebody with the last name, make a chief, right? And we've only had maybe 1-2 blacks make it, but it's a whole bunch of ties walking across the stage. And they point out the chief of the department is a tie, the XO of the department is a tie, the CEO of the office is a tie, personnel people. So they're like, well, we see one group running things, and this is the way it looks. And again, it may be things that I don't know, right? So, this is why I want to put it on you. And I know you run a big city, like the police department is just one portion of what you're responsible for. And so we just wanted to put out there that these are concerns, and maybe you can help us. We can have some conversations, because there might be things that people are not paying attention to, right? So we can put on a radar. Thank you for.
So you've heard that, and it's very disturbing, because what do we see? We're hearing him talk about race-based promotions, obviously, and all of that. But here's the most important thing, because this is just fresh off the table here. Patrick Gordon has been transferred. He went from his rapid response unit, the chief of department, to the liaison unit. So I guess the promotions and transfers don't happen. I mean, he's getting transferred. He's getting what we like to say, quote unquote, hooked up, Hey, here, Patrick Donahue says, take a deep dive into how Patrick Gordon became president of the Guardians Association. There was such turmoil that the original Guardians annual dinner dance was canceled, postponed. This guy I'm going to tell you this. That was an openly racist tirade, and he's talking to an advert racist than Eric Adams, who thinks people are crackers, Caucasian officers. So I just want to point this out, that's Now, when you start mentioning vowels, people that have O's getting promoted, there was a recent promotion. I think there were 2 Italians on there, right? And then he's making reference to, I guess black and brown people he wants to like not even think about his pal, Jeffrey Madry, and what happened in that entire scandal. And he's just going to make reference to, oh, well, why are these people getting promoted? You get promoted on merit. I mean, I thought that's what Jessica Tisch does as the police commissioner. And by the way, why is he crying to Eric Adams and not Jessica Tisch? And it should show you that this video, the source of this video, where the original source is, looks like it's someone that's actually close to Mr. Gordon. It just shows how they really feel about this man. And I don't know how else to say other than that is an openly racist tirade. No matter how you feel about this guy, if you talk about promotions, you should be mentioning promotions. Well, somebody was 5 years as a detective and has not been promoted yet. Meanwhile, somebody with 6 months on hangs out at Conso Frito and gets grade. Not even third, he gets first grade. He gets 10 promotions up, kind of like Kaz Dordry, a Rockefeller promotion, as Eric Dim says. But not, oh, well, we don't have enough. What's this we? What is he talking about? Because, again, that's racist. And a while back, the Guardians wrote something stupid about John and Eric about making memes. And it's really, they made memes off of what Eric Adams himself says, which he called himself the chocolate administration. And he was just outlandish. And they sent all these, I guess they sent people after John and Eric online. It was like 24 hours because they were buddying up the people that were involved in sexual harassment and assault cases like Kaz Dordry, John Schell. The list could go on and on and on. Jeffrey Madry, his mentor, we can't even mention sexual harassment because there's the kingpin of it. So, just take what he says as a grain of salt, but it just shows you. And by the way, the Italian-American Civil Rights League is about to chime in on that because many Italian Americans are very disgusted with that rhetoric and that someone who's that high up or is in charge of some association would even dare to talk like that, whether it's public or in private where you're lobbying the mayor. It's not our problem that people around you don't like you or trust you, Mr. Gordon. And really, you should just, I don't know, you need to take some classes or something. You got some deep-rooted racist overtones about you. Just to flip this, if the script was flipped and it was a Caucasian mayor and a Caucasian lieutenant talking about their association and they're mentioning how, oh, well, we don't have enough of our people getting promoted and sounding like him on the reverse flip of it where he's saying that, Caucasian people aren't getting promoted and just black and brown need to be held down or whatever, you would see riots in the street. So why is it being ignored now? Patrick Gordon's a disgrace. And I don't know why he's not suspended right now for those openly racist remarks. And I hope that transfer the transfer should be to like Siberia in the NYPD. That would pretty much teach someone that you don't say stupid things like that when promotions are merit-based. But with that being said, I'm going to bring on my guest. I'm sure he just saw that and said, what the hell? But without any further ado, he's a former FBI agent. He's also part of the Suspendables, and that's my good friend, Kyle Seraphin.
How you doing, buddy?
Kyle, welcome to the Sal Greco Show. I've been wanting you on the show for a long time. I don't know if you have anything to say about what you just saw, but that is just like open racism right in front of you. And they want race-based promotions, which is not, and the Guardians was not built on that, Kyle. I know the original president was Eric Sanders, who did a lot, but then realized that he was up against Eric Adams coming after him and stuff, like going back and forth, rabble-rousing. So that whole thing has become what you see today. It's really a discredited association because of the leadership, like that clown.
Well, it goes to the conversation you and I were having before we went live, which is really straightforward. There are two things that drive organizations, that drive your operational principles. You have to have a task, what you want to go do, your mission, and then there's a purpose. That's the why. So why were you founded? What are you trying to do? And when you get away from the roots and you disconnect task and purpose, I used to hear people in the federal government say this. This is true at every level. It doesn't matter whether it's state or federal or local. It's really simple. If your fraternal organizations are no longer about promoting the values and trying to improve the work conditions or to benefit the individual who is doing the mission, if that's not the why that they exist, then they no longer are serving any interest. They are divorcing task and purpose. We used to have people, I had a guy tell me this, what is it, New Jersey, where you can't pump your own gas? Is that right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, New Jersey.
So look, I like my in-laws. My father-in-law used to live in Brooklyn, so we drive up there from the DC area. My other in-laws, they live up in Connecticut, so we'd spend time driving through New York. They used to have a place in New York as well, and so it's like you drive in there and you're going through on the turnpike. You pull off to go get some gas, and you're from America where you're used to pumping your own gas. And some dude comes up and you're like, "Hey, get the hell away from my car! Like, what are you doing?" And he's like, "No, I have to pump it." And you're like, "Why?" And so they tell you like, well, because it's a state law. And they have the same thing, I think, in Oregon as well. There's a couple states where this is required. And so I asked the guy, I'm sitting there and like, I'm irritated already that somebody else is touching my car, which by the way, you used to have to pay extra for. Like I grew up in a time when there was self-serve and full serve, right? Like that was a thing. And so if you wanted to pay a little bit less and you didn't want someone to like clean your windshield like a homeless bum, and you didn't want someone to like fill your gas tank for you, whatever else, take the money in, like you used to be able to have that choice. And so I asked the guy, I'm like, dude, why are you pumping my gas? Like, what is that about? And he's like, people need jobs. That was his statement to me. People need jobs. And so when your whole purpose is that you need to exist because you need to exist for your own sake, and you don't serve a mission that's broader, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about police officers that are actually doing the job and then administrators who are screwing up the job. You're talking about federal agents where you got management structures that are disconnected from the mission set, whether you're talking about teachers where they bloat the administration and you've got the assistant deputy, principal for academic diversity instead of having like people that are actually teaching, right? When you get down to the mission set of what a benevolent association is designed to do, it's supposed to further the mission. They shouldn't be fighting against things like fitness standards, but they do.
Yep, they do.
Right? You see all of these organizations across the country, and it's not just New York, it's nationwide, that police unions, public sector unions, they constantly fight against the things that are actually necessary for the job. Like, you're a fit guy. I generally am a pretty fit guy. I know how to shoot. I know how to handle myself physically. Do you want people who are less fit, less capable of holding up to rigorous standards to be holding the same job as you, getting paid the same, and maybe backing you up in a life or death scenario?
I want the fit guy. Trust me.
You don't want the fat guy running up on there and getting you killed. You want somebody that's able to fight, that looks at themselves and says, my professional demands that I have a minimum core competency, and it should be at least enough to do the job, as opposed to having people argue against that. And by the way, when they do that, they're also arguing against the public good. So whether it's a benevolent association, whether it's an FBI agents association, we didn't bring this up, but it's actually in my feed if Jack wants to pull it. Norm Eisen.
Norm Eisen.
Norm Eisen was one of the people who actually executed the first impeachment against Donald Trump. He was part of the co-counsel that went and brought those charges against Donald Trump, which was nonsense to begin with, right? Norm Eisen is one of the people that the FBI Agents Association, so that is the equivalent of a police union, if you will. The FBI doesn't allow people to have union representatives. What they do have is like a mutual aid, a legal aid scenario. So you dump money into it. They lobby Congress for budgets. They try to push policy to the director. They also try to, crowdsource legal funding if you get into a shooting or if you have some sort of disciplinary action. By the way, they're absolutely useless. They've saved 0 people because some of their funding actually comes back from the FBI. So they're beholden to 2 masters, and they choose the one that's always going to be there because you're expendable. They hired Norm Eisen. The FBI Agents Association did. This is documented fact, and multiple different left and right-leaning organizations have shown Norm Eisen represents the FBI Agents Association against the FBI and Donald Trump's agenda. Why? Because they don't want their names exposed for doing January 6th investigation. Imagine if you, Sal, if you're doing a job and they were like, hey, you're on a violent crime task force, or you're on Safe Streets, or you're on some sort of neighborhood patrol where we're trying to go and solve a gang problem in a specific neighborhood. And you're just doing the work that you're asked to do. And then a new administration comes in and they're like, hey, we're not going to do that anymore. And by the way, we'd like the names of all the people that were involved in those investigations, because we think some of them were partisan. They might have been illegal. They might have been politically motivated. Are you going to be fine with the idea that they're going to lobby and spend money on an expensive far leftist attorney who's going to hide your name from the people you actually work for? First of all, it's the administration that you work for. And then secondly, add on to it is the fact that you're talking about you work for the American people or you work for the people of New York. They're actually paying Norm Eisen to cover for them against the Trump administration, despite whatever, 77 million people who voted one way. It's craziness to me.
That guy, he's a notoriously bad dude. I know my friend Jason Goodman's been got court filings against him. He's run into Norm Eisen, who's just he's a bad guy. He's like you said, he was spearheading a lot of the get Trump stuff that was going on for years, with whether it was with Biden's administration or when Trump was in office.
They were trying to get him off the ballot in Colorado. So people may remember there was a push initially to remove Trump from the ballot, which again goes back to New York because of the felony charges. And so they were like, oh, we're going to get him off the ballot. And so there was this group called CREW, CREW, which was essentially a left-wing law firm doing leftist lawfare. And Norm Eisen was one of the co-founders of that, as I recall. I know he was involved in what they call the CREW. You know, and it just goes on and on. And the other guy they hired was Mark Zaid. And Mark Zaid is allegedly a whistleblower attorney, as long as the whistleblowers are on the right side of the political aisle. But again, a hard leftist. So when you see these groups that they're acting like they're offering assistance to the average guy that's doing the job or the average gal. And in reality, you know, they're pushing a political agenda just by who they hire for their attorneys to be able to do it. It's really gross and ugly when you just peel it back one layer. And then when they get to speak in public comments and they just do like objectively ridiculous things, like imagine, like you said, holding up I call it the mirror test. You know, you hold a mirror up and you say, can you say the same thing and switch out the names? Can you talk about white people in the same way you just did about black and brown people? Can you talk about any other ethnic group? Can you do the same thing as a female as you're hearing, the male? Imagine this. I had a boss, Saul, and I don't know if I told you this before, but I'm wearing like a light blue shirt that I got. It was like an REI shirt or something. And I'm wearing it to work and I'm doing surveillance. So it's like kind of like dress down day in Washington field office. And my boss, who was the same age as me, who was a single female, unmarried, and who some people, although I question their character, thought she was attractive. She wasn't to me, but to each their own. And so she's like kind of a tall, blonde. She has some sort of bureau credentials. She started working for the FBI when she was 24 or 25, like so many of them do. And here I am, we're in our mid 30s. I'm like 36 or 37. She comes up, she puts her hand on my shoulder gently and says, Kyle, that's a really nice shirt. You should wear it more often. Can you imagine going up to some female that you worked with, putting your hand on it and be like, Susan, that's a beautiful blouse. You should wear that more frequently. Like, you're fired, dude.
That's an EEO.
It's so simple. Yeah, you hold the mirror up and you know it's wrong. You can't go out and talk about ethnic groups except when you can, except when they're protected. And like, I thought that's what Americans were kind of voting for. They were like, hey, we're over this crap. Because when you and I grew up, a lot of the race-based nonsense was mostly gone. Everywhere that I knew about, in any sort of like play, there were some vestiges of it down in some places, but you outside of the deep South, West Coast, East Coast, a lot of the so-called cosmopolitan 80s and 90s, go look at television from that era. Yeah, it was all but gone until everybody focused on it. I feel like a lot of that came from like 2009, Barack Obama moving forward. They reinjected garbage back into the poison into American civilization. So now we're talking about race again, when I felt like in my lifetime, we were almost over it.
Yeah, I don't listen. It's always going to be an issue because you can never root everything out 100%, even crime. But as far as a major issue, we're like well beyond this now. And yet, when you have people like Patrick Gordon, who I don't know, Pat Donahue says in here, did he complain to the DEI office in the NYPD? They should have a DEI office at this point, because you see something like that. I mean, he's someone, again, he's not that he's prominent on the job in his rank because he's only a lieutenant. Mm-hmm. He represents the Guardians, which is, listen, Eric Adams was a member. Tim Pearson's a member. Phil Banks is a member. All these people. And, he's talking about Miguel Iglesias, a guy who hung out at that restaurant with a known mob associate and self-admitted criminal, along with all this internal affair problem they had. And he's talking about, oh, well, they're no longer here. They're not there because they're corrupt. They're there because of what happened, not because they're getting skipped over or some crazy whatever he's trying to make an allegation of. It's just crazy that he's even talking that way. And by the way, Eric Adams did not correct him. He didn't say, "Oh, excuse me, we don't do this in the police department or in my New York City." And why was he even complaining to him? And just to flip things, here's Eric Adams. He says, this was just yesterday. How is MAGA feeling seeing the so-called blue MAGA mayor flip-flop on you? He is the Biden of Brooklyn after all. Great move letting him off the hook of his criminal trial, email Bove, 4D chess. And if you actually look into this article, what happened is there was an illegal immigrant that they went into, I guess they were holding them. I don't know how they got them. It says it in the article, but Trump's ICE got them. And there was a lot of pressure on Eric because he wasn't coming out for, against this. And then, of course, if you pressure him enough and he's got things going on and he'll flip on you. And now he's for this person saying, "Oh, you shouldn't get deported," and all this stuff. But I thought he was the blue MAGA mayor, supposed to be with Trump, because this was one of the things I want to get into with you. Because we've been critical of Trump for not that we're not for him, but God damn it, what is he doing with this guy? It says right here, Dylan Lopez Contreras was going through the exact legal proceeding that we encourage new arrivals to go through in order to be able to work and provide for their families, and even access the center that we created for migrants to be able to avoid city shelters and become independent. And that's what Eric said. And I guess
but how are you going to be independent when you're illegally here? Like, there's no such thing as a migrant. We actually do have a migrant worker program. They don't go to New York City, man. That's not what they're for. The migrant worker programs are to come in for seasonal work, for specific things that need to be done in this country, and then you go back home and you get to keep the money and take it with you. That's a program that the United States has had going back into like at least the 60s when they were having they used to fight those kind of those visas, the migrant worker visas, because it was contrary to people who actually went through the long legal process to get here. And this happened in the California agricultural regions and so on. So if anybody's from different parts of the country, these things have happened. This idea that we're going to use the language and you just watch somebody, they'll tell you who they are by what language they use. They'll tell you how they think by what language they use. If you're calling them undocumented immigrants or undocumented migrants or political asylees or, they're refugees, when none of those are all legal terms that have legal meanings, that have legal process associated behind them. Like we talk about people that came in from Afghanistan. They're referred to as State Department parolees. Who calls them that? Very few people. Why? Because they're trying to push this agenda that this is a homogenous group that requires your empathy and your feelings. And they don't want to go into the hard facts that there's plenty of these people that committed crimes that have no business being here. And okay, fine. He was doing the process in New York City. Did he do the process when he came over the border? Was he following what our law says or not? And they don't ever want to get into that. So you listen to Mayor Adams. Of course, Mayor Adams is going to think what Mayor Adams, he's the freaking mayor of New York. New York is not putting in people who care about law and order and structure and that are going to, generally speaking, get on what we believe sort of, let's call it in spirit, Trump's agenda is. And you could be contrary to Trump's personnel decisions and still not disagree with the things that he said. Like his messaging was solid. It was actually quite good. And I told people this early on. I was like, if we get 30% of what Trump promised, it's probably a win considering our political environment, But the part that we're not going to get is when you make policy decisions like Chris Wray was a policy decision or was a personnel decision of Donald Trump, right? Some of the worst people who have come in and betrayed the agenda that people thought they were voting for, they were almost all personnel based. Bill Barr was one of those issues. Yes. So when you see that kind of stuff together, you're talking about people. Personnel is policy. The people that you elevate is your policy. And so we can only evaluate you on what your proxies have to say. Like you may say all the right things. You might have Elon Musk coming in and doing Doge cuts and everyone's like, yeah, get the waste out. And then does your Congress do it? Does your Republican Party back it up?
They're probably terrible. Not. They've been terrible, Kyle. There has one bill in 6 months passed by Republicans, yet they have both chambers. I don't get it. I don't know. Other than it's just a stalemate. And what are they going to do? They're going to go right back to having a Democrat in charge. It's like they're playing hot potato. Who's got the hot? They just keep passing it back and forth. They don't care.
No, but this is a bigger thing, and so this is a really important point. Everybody thinks I've got the ring of power. Now I'm going to be able to wield it. I've got the machine, and now it works for me. There's two things we know about that are true. Number one, the machine works for itself. It works for itself in New York City. It works for itself in Dallas, Texas. It works for itself in the state house in Texas, where I live right now, and it works for itself in every federal agency. The machine serves itself. That's what a deep state or an entrenched administrative state is. That's what permanent Washington or any level of this kind of bloated administrative beast is, right? That's part one. And the second thing is you cannot wield that thing because it serves itself. The only thing you can do if you want it to work is de-weaponize. And so I heard a lot of people use the word weaponization. There were entire committees that were set up that said, when we get power, we're going to de-weaponize the government. There's a de-weaponization group over at DOJ right now. But none of them seem to be interested in doing the hard truth, which is that you have to deconstruct the weapon, right? If you're in a street fight with somebody and they have access to a weapon, you got two things. You can try to take the weapon and use it, but if they're stronger, they'll take it back.
Yeah.
Or you take the weapon apart and they can't use it and you can't use it. And that's the only way we're going to do it, because we're not in a street fight where you're going to end up on top and then you put them in cuffs and they go into a holding cell for the rest of the night. We're in a scenario where it might as well be a football game. At some point, they're going to get the ball. So if you leave animals in there that are going to be capable of being turned against you, if you leave weaponized machines that serve themselves and are more than happy to serve any master as long as it meets their end, then they're going to use it against you. They're going to use it against me. Like, the argument is always deconstruct. And guess what? That's what our founders wanted. That's why we have a Bill of Rights. They didn't believe that a strong central government was the right animal. They were like, you can't trust it. So the sad thing is Donald Trump has never been a small government guy. And so, whether people like it or not, like, he's not a conservative. He's like he's like a New York Democrat from the late 80s and early 90s, which is not a terrible thing, but it's not the same as me. Like, I would shut down most of the federal government. I just don't like it.
I actually believe exactly like you. So before I get a little more than that, I want to backtrack just a little bit with Eric, because we used to talk forever about that whole criminal case with Eric Adams. So it's been a while since I've had you in front of me. Yeah. They dropped that case. Emil Bove, who was a deputy attorney general, decides to drop this case, and there's all kinds of quid pro quo things going on. They basically 7 line prosecutors who worked in the Southern District of New York, but let's not look at them like 7 Republicans, 7 Democrats. They just 7 people who worked there and had this case and worked on it for so long. And there's all this stuff going on with this case. So Emil Bove drops this case. It's a fiasco the way they did it. On top of it, he's now going to be getting a judgeship. He's going to go to the appellate court in New Jersey. He's actually got nominated for this. So there's more quid pro quos on this. 7 people lose their jobs. This guy right now should be getting sentenced. Forget about running around and what he's doing and his continued criminality. But that whole thing that happened there, Kyle, with the Southern District of New York, and that now D.C. was saying you're not sovereign from anything. What was your take on all of that going on? Because now I understand, Kyle, all cases, and this is going to be breaking here, all cases involving Eric Adams or Ed Caban or anything you heard about the New York State Police Department have been paused. Yeah. So there's no movement. Public corruption.
Listen, we talked about this back when we were first discussing this, that there's no question in my mind that case had been building for years. And the agent or agents that had worked on it were getting made fun of for holding it and keeping it alive. Right? Yes. Because it was never going to go anywhere. It was never going to get prosecuted. So there are cases like that. People build these cases up because they know they're righteous. They're like, okay, look, I don't care about Democrat. I had guys that came and briefed me and they were like, here's a problem. This is a lobbyist, and he's working on behalf of a foreign government, and he's friends with a former Republican president. And I'm a registered Republican. That's the guy agent talking to us. He's like, but this is wrong. We got to build this case. And you're like, yeah, it's never going to get prosecuted. You know, it's not. You know, based on who's in power, that it's never going to go anywhere. But maybe you're that agent and you're just like, look, right is right, wrong is wrong. The job is the job. I can leave my politics at the door. I'm not playing for a team. I'm paying for Team America. So let's say you are that guy, which is what we hope Americans have for law enforcement at every level. Mm-hmm. So they go out and build this case. And every time you bring it up to an AUSA, that's the Assistant United States Attorney, that's your prosecutors in the Southern District of New York or anywhere else. You bring it to them and you go, hey, I got this case. Here's where I'm at. Love to do it. We'd like to get a search warrant. We'd like to get you to sign off. We'd like to put this in front of a grand jury and indict. And they're like, nah, not going to happen. Briefed it to the boss. Boss says no, right? That's how these work. And so it goes back to your thing and you continue to gather evidence. That Mayor Adams case was building for years, well before Donald Trump was in office. It was well before Joe Biden was there and kind of doing whatever they were doing with him. It predated both of them. It at least went back to Trump's first term and maybe before that, if my memory serves.
Yep.
So all of that evidence that was put together, You finally got the break where they brought it forward because you only get one shot at it, right? You only get one shot to bring a case forward. Once that happens, evidence starts disappearing. People stop talking to each other. Phones go away. Like, there's a reason why people try to get in there before they flush the drugs or the evidence or the electronics out the way. So you get one shot at the indictment and the public statement about it and bringing the guy out and doing, they call it arraignment in local, but it's called an initial appearance for federal. You get one shot at that, and they did it. And then they just let it go. That agent is back into the dog pen getting made fun of for working that case for 10 years. So you saw the SDNY prosecutors walk off the job. Let's say that they were not political actors. They actually did the job the way they were supposed to do, which I think that's possible. It's at least a reasonable possibility that some of them were. But if you put your heart and soul into a case and you bet your career on it, you're like, how are you going to work in that city again, knowing that the thing that you exposed and what you were going to go after, the guy is now the most powerful guy in your city and he's got carte blanche to do whatever he wants. Can't be held accountable. That's when people stop. That's when they hang up the spikes and go, I'm out, dude. I'm just not going to do it. I'll go work for a private firm. My ability to believe in the process is done because I got to see the politics of the job. Everybody who's ever experienced it, like, they got two choices, right? They either walk away from it and go, never again. Shame on me for being such a naive, like, idealist. I bet you had that feeling for a while where you actually thought like good was good, right was right. You know, the job is the job. Bad guys are bad guys. We all want to put them away. And then you realize some bad guys are not as bad as others because they got the right friends. And that's when things get real ugly. And then you start playing this operational morality game where it's like the ends justify the means. And as long as my guy wins, then I don't care. And now we're not talking about law enforcement. We're talking about an enforcement wing of a secret police or it's like the classic sort of strongman dictatorship tactics. That's why people are so disillusioned with what happens in America right now. They literally look at things and go, the game is obviously rigged. With the right friends, there is no justice. And sometimes you see even more examples of it locally and close to you. And you just lose people every day. They lost them during COVID. They lost them this. Institutions debased themselves and devalued their own opinion to regular people who say, hey, man, I can see you moving the goalposts. I can see you. And they don't care. And you're like, all right, well, then I'm out. I stopped caring. I'm not going to be part of a system that is obviously fake because all they do is they steal your credibility then. So,
yeah,
it's ongoing. That's my long take on that. But
yeah, and that whole thing. And look, I mean, his Caban's brother, this guy on the right, the criminal mob associate that owned Conso Frito or managed it, but really was the owner. And there's the former police commissioner. All these cases have now been put in pause. So that's what's going on behind the scenes with the DOJ right now and the Eric Adams cronies, the Conso Frito crew, the Crumbs crew, Eric himself. And then, just today, the FBI announces that I believe the former Treasury, or I guess he was part of the SBA union, which is the Sergeants Benevolent Association. He pled guilty to, I guess, lying on his tax form. So this is right here. Dennis Osterman, the controller of the SBA, entered a guilty plea in the United States District Court to one count of aiding and assisting in the preparation of a false and fraudulent personal U.S. income tax return. I want to be absolutely clear that the charge to which Mr. Osterman pled guilty to is related solely to a private entity and personal financial dealings dating back over 6 years ago. So it's nice to see, Kyle, that they put so much resources into a lonely sergeant on the totem pole and let Eric Adams and all the big fish go back out there and commit more crimes. I'm going to get to that in 1 minute.
What do you think that negotiation looked like on that plea deal? Because that wasn't the original charge, right?
No, not even close. The original charge were probably facing, he's probably facing a few years for whatever they originally were looking at, which was the SBA under Ed Mullins. If you remember, this goes back.
It's always that same discussion, though. It's like, okay, here's the bigger problem. This is what we can prove, or we would be able to, like, at least just sully the hell out of you if we took it out public. We're gonna have you cop to it. You're gonna go down for this, and it's gonna be a much smaller thing, and you're gonna be the only one who carries it. And so there has to be a look. That's the quid part. What's the pro quo? What's coming back his way? What's for him? What's for him is some other benefit. People don't take deals like that unless they are, one, caught red-handed and they've got no other way out of it, or two, like they're offered something. And it's like, yeah, here's the deal. You're gonna take a hit right now, but it's gonna work out. You're gonna be taken care of on the back end. You have to, like, I know I know that was not the only bad thing that happened. That's just what he pled guilty to. And you don't have to be into a lot of proffer deals to see how these things work out. Give up somebody that we want for a bigger case, take the heat so that somebody else doesn't. And then at the end of the day, you're going to be okay. It's just, we've already agreed. We already figured out what the sentencing is going to look like. We're going to make a really short, like a really light sentencing recommendation. So this is going to be a slap on the wrist. You're going to be able to continue on. I don't know. I just don't like seeing stuff like that because that's when people can see it. Like I said, that's the goalpost moving and people can see it. People don't like to see corruption. There's a reason why public corruption is one of the most important functions that law enforcement does, because the government exists in whatever format at the state and the local and the federal level. If you don't have any faith in that institution doing the right thing, or that there's some accountability for those people, and we're more and more just sort of going like, yeah, we can't fix it. It's all too big to fail. Like, what do they say? You can't fight City Hall. I remember my father-in-law would say that a lot. That attitude is pervasive. If you can't fight City Hall, then there's only one other option. And that's like, you have to overthrow everything and start from nothing. And nobody wants that. That's an ugly, ugly scenario. So when you see small evidence of corruption and it hints at what's the bigger stuff that's being hidden under the rug, you just see the little bit of it sticking out its nose. Everybody is worse off for that. Like, regular people are worse off. And the problem is a lot of people just don't pay attention whatsoever. As long as their Netflix is still working, as long as Uber Eats is still dropping food at their door, right? As long as you can still go to Costco and wait in a big line to buy like huge hunks of beef for a decent price, like, they're not going to get too riled up about it. So it's just, actually, we're going to talk about him later probably, but Dan Bongino used to say, like, how, is it bad enough yet? And it's not. Yeah, it's just not, buddy. It's not bad enough anywhere.
To him, but before I just say, so Ron Layson, who's the co-host of Executive Perspective, chimes in here, says, well, one of the reasons I left the NYPD after over 30 years is because of the fact I felt I could no longer make a positive change and do the right thing by the right people due to the upper echelon. You see, and that's the common denominator, common trend we see here. And Frankie Pagliucci gives a $1.99 to the podcast, or like I say, like, I could get a cafecito afterwards. Exactly, it's called no due process. So he's talking about what the whole Eric Adams case, but that now, what we just discussed, will lead into this, because in the last few days we learned about this whole crypto abduction, torture, some crazy thing was going on in New York City, and of course, who's involved in it again? Eric Adams, and I'll tell you why. Right here, I'm going to read this off to you because this is crazy, Kyle. William Duplessis was a partner in an early crypto company called Science Blockchain, whose founder was Brock Pierce, who is also a crypto billionaire and friend. He is also a prolific fundraiser to New York City Mayor Eric Adams. William was indicted Wednesday for his role in the crypto torture kidnapping that took place recently. Eric's NYPD security detail was working off duty doing security for William in violation of NYPD patrol guide procedures. William's brother Andrew also knows Eric Adams well, like Brock, and donated the largest amount into Eric's coffers in the 2021 mayoral campaign. How well does Eric know Brock and William and his family? Hashtag all roads lead to Eric Adams. And if you roll this down a little bit, there's the pictures of all these guys put together, wrapped up into one. Because Brock, the picture up top is William. Then that's Brock with Eric Adams. Then Brock again with Eric Adams. And right there, when it was asked to Google on AI, yes, it's true that Andrew Duplessis, along with other lawyers and their relatives, donated to Eric Adams' campaign for mayor. Specifically, the two lawyers and their family members donated a total of $8,500 to Adams' campaign. These donations were the largest they have ever made to a city official, according to the New York Times. So you understand here, Kyle, this is all now being alleged behind the scenes of this investigation. So the security guy, and I know the names, one of them, two of them were now modified, so they don't have a gun and shield. So what is being alleged is that one of them drove the victim of William Duplessis to his place. But there's more to the story. So I'm getting some we'll say, trickling down some information. So we'll say it's alleged, but so allegedly there's this place that is in Soho. It's 4 or 5 stories. There's a lot of stories. But it's in 24/7, like, I don't know what you want to call it, hangout, brothel. 2 people well, just I think allegedly their names they go by as the Italians were bringing females in. It's like a party atmosphere, and there's 10 people that are there, like security, 3 being full duty NYPD people. You're learning about them now. They're Eric Adams security, and then 7 or so were retirees. They were bringing these people into the building, and one of them was this guy, and the top floor has a security where you can't get through, and that's where they were holding this guy. And guess who's involved? All of these security people, and they have ties to who? Eric Adams, who this guy is Eric Adams' friend, his brother, and it's crypto where what? We hear Eric Adams is going to the convention conveniently the other day, and we hear that the president, even Trump, talking about crypto, and now they're like extorting people and doing mob-like tactics, which sounds like something coming out of a movie. And there's all kinds of allegations here. I'm just getting these like bits and pieces. If any of that is true, and that also, I mean, John McCarry chimed in and said allegedly they heard that the gun used was from the security, which is the NYPD guys. This is wild, Kyle. This is wild.
Yeah, no, it does sound like a plot to a movie. It'd be a pretty good movie too. I mean, it'd be a one I would want to watch. I'm sure there's a lot of intrigue and all that kind of stuff. It shouldn't happen in real life. That's not what the badge is supposed to be about. You're not supposed to be able to go out and profit off. There's plenty of people that moonlight. I'm sure they do the same thing in New York City, where you moonlight as a security somewhere, and there's always policy that says what you can and can't do. I know they do it locally. I see guys that are doing security for churches. You could do it for nightclubs sometimes. Maybe they're private security on a property that has a lot of problems. I don't think you're supposed to be able to do it for someone to facilitate kidnap and torture. I'm pretty sure that's frowned upon in every major jurisdiction. It's a pretty wild decision. Here's the other thing. I can't imagine anybody thinking that they would get away with something like that unless they had folks that were going to cover for them and they were kind of giving the wink and the nod that this is okay. And then also, this is the other piece. We talked about this earlier. You had Ron and his comment talking about NYPD leaving because you can't make positive change in this. And you and I were speaking before we went live with this as well. Mm-hmm. Why can't you make change? Why can't you make change at the upper echelon? Why can you not get your management to get in line and try to help out the people that are involved in the actual mission? Again, task and purpose. The purpose of your NYPD, the purpose of your federal law enforcement, the purpose of any of these groups is to go out and to keep the public safe and to investigate violations of law and stop them theoretically by sort of deterring other people when they see the consequences of doing so. And the reason you can't is because if you're a crap manager or you're corrupt, are you going to hire straight shooters, people who call it as they see it, people who want to do honest work? Are you going to hire those people to work for you? They're going to expose you. That's what that does. You're never going to bring people that remind you that you're doing something shady into your circle that would have the possibility of exposing you. So what you get, once you have a layer of corruption of any kind, or whether you have a layer of incompetency, or you have a layer of DEI of people who didn't earn it kind of thing, and you bring those people into a layer of management, as long as that layer of management continues to grow, everybody underneath it is going to be recruited that's going to have similar values. There's a reason why personnel is policy. This is something that people have said for a very long time. And if you understand government, you know it very true. The people you choose to do the job say a lot about what you want the job to be. If you're cool with corruption, if you're cool with people doing things that are shady and unethical, or they're doing it in a way that is racist, or that is viewed through a lens of hard leftism, or take your pick, political ideology or anything else, if you only recruit from that, that's why you're never going to get change. And people always wonder, well, how far down does it go? It goes down as far as the people that are in the management chain go. Find the layer of corruption, and everybody beneath it is most likely. Because I can tell you from my old organization, the only people that raised their hand up, there were 2 types. One said, I'll be a supervisor. I want to stay near the work. I'm going to be a desk supervisor. Think of that as like a shift sergeant. The desk supervisor, the first level supervisor, they just want to see the work get done. If they promoted beyond that, they're willing to say yes to bad ideas. Because the joke that my buddy used to tell me is that there's nobody in the FBI that's a GS 15 or higher that ever said no to a bad idea. You can't say no to a bad idea. You got to say yes if you want to promote. So all the people, you know what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter what culture it is. Like it's in your old job, it's in my old job, it's in a lot of companies too. If you don't have a culture of dissent that allows, tolerates, promotes, and celebrates people having an alternative view of the prevailing sort of ethos. If somebody can't come up and throw the BS flag and say, by the way, I see a real problem here. Can we do a timeout here and just reevaluate? If that doesn't exist, in your culture, you're only going to have problems. And we see it at every level, and it happens in law enforcement. And like I said, it happens everywhere, from the most local, corrupt, weird thing that's happened in my dad's little town in Arizona where 20,000 people live. And it happens in the United States of America where 350 million people theoretically have a say. We see corruption because people tolerate corruption, and corrupt people bring in more corrupt people. And let's say unprincipled people only want to surround themselves with unprincipled people, because principled people are a problem. If you have them, they're the problem.
They're the problem because they won't stand for this kind of stuff.
That's right.
And here's the worst part about this, right? And this is John Shell, who they paid out 2.5. He's the chief of department, by the way. Now the city paid out 2.5 million in a case of, he basically killed someone. So, but the way he did it was crazy, because the grand jury that he says he was cleared of, there's no record of any minutes of it. So. But he was cleared criminally, allegedly. We don't really know. And civilly, the city had to pay out. Yet he's in position of power today. He's the chief of department, and he sits silent as all this goes on. He was part of it himself. And this whole thing, though, with Eric Adams and the crypto thing, what I wanted to really put the exclamation point on here is, this just happened. Remember, though, he should have been sentenced right now. It is Trump's DOJ that let him off the hook, and now you're hearing that he's involved in something else with Brock Pierce, who's part of MAGA World. I believe he was down in the inauguration with Eric was around. I saw Brock Pierce taking pictures with Eric's guys. So, again, why did you let this guy off the hook, knowing that he's constantly involved in criminality? Constantly.
So let me play devil's advocate for a second on you. Because I don't need to ever defend people. I don't know Donald Trump from anybody else. I never met the guy. But what I do know is that we all have a limited attention span. I can only focus on so much. You know so much more about what's going on in New York. I'm not connected in the same way. So I hear peripherals. I read national news, but I don't know. At the end of the day, Donald Trump's the same. He's a human being. He doesn't sleep very much from what I can tell, but he sleeps. And he's got some finite number of hours, and he's got a finite attention span. So he can't pay attention to everything. This is why personnel is so important. At some point, you have to give your trust to people, especially if you're going to be part of an organization. I had a discussion today on my podcast, and I said, the odds of you knowing everything that's going on in an organization that has 20,000 people is very low. If you're the CEO of Walmart, you don't know what the door greeter's doing in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You don't know. How would you know? You don't even know what the general manager is doing up there. It just doesn't get briefed up to you at that level. So when people at the DOJ claiming that any governmental organization fundamentally only answers, especially a federal government agency, to say that they answer to one man and that guy has oversight of all of it. No, what happens is personnel is policy. You choose people, they delegate to other people, they delegate to other people. It's just like, you remember that movie Multiplicity? Mm-hmm. With, what was it, Michael Keaton, who is one of my favorites, right? The copy of the copy of the copy. It's the same deal. It's like the game of telephone. It starts off, I'm telling Sal Greco, I'm like, hey, man, we're coming to get the bad guys. And by the end of it, it's like, hey, man, we're coming to give them small fries. We want to give them small fries and a Happy Meal. And so the bad guy gets a Happy Meal, right? At some point, the message gets diluted. I think the longer you get away and the further you get away from people, you're going to find out that I don't think it was ever Trump's DOJ, and I'm not sure it was ever even Biden's DOJ. I think it's the DOJ's DOJ. It's my argument that the machine and the status quo are undefeated. And if you're willing to be like a politically compromised, if you're willing to be a snake anywhere, you're always going to have really good outcomes because you got no morals. Nothing will backstop you. You've got certain principles, and you're only going to you're not going to break those principles to win. That's not the case for people who are willing to go against you and be evil. So that's not a defense of Donald Trump, because at the end of the day, the buck has to stop somewhere. But it should be, we should give grace, I think, knowing that not any person can handle these animals. And imagining that you're going to bring in one guy and solve all the problems. That's why I said 30%. If you got 30% of it, you're still winning. Man, where are the Congress people that are holding these people to effect? Where are the impeachments that should be happening in the Senate? Where are the people that are actually supposed to, the rest of the representatives of the American public? Because for all the constitutional talk I hear on the political right, does anybody even read the damn Constitution? Like, the legislature is supposed to be the most powerful branch. We're not supposed to elect a king. I don't know why everyone wants one. We're a bunch of idolaters in that way. And so we hope one person's going to come and save us, because most people don't want to do the hard work of standing up, it costing you something like your job, and pushing back against things that are evil, regardless of whether or not you're vindicated in your own time. Most men are not vindicated in their own time. Usually what happens is you die the villain and people realize afterwards, like, hey, that guy was pretty good. Like, he actually did some really good stuff. It's like, oh, that other guy, he was corrupt as hell. He may have had all the power on earth, but that's not how it's supposed to, that is the message of Christianity. It turns everything on its head. You don't have to win on earth to win. And so I don't know. Sometimes I remember that because otherwise I would just be black-pilled. I would just be such a miserable creature looking out there and seeing it seems like all the bad guys win regularly.
Yeah.
You see it as a cop too on the street. It's like, how is this asshole still out here again?
But to your point, I remember going in. I used to talk to federal people all the time, and I almost jumped to the FBI, which would have been a huge mistake. And I went in originally, and I spoke to someone, and I said, "Listen, I want to be, I'm going to join, but I'm afraid because I had a couple of years in NYPD." And the guy I was talking to that was like, "Listen," I was like, "If I come in, Obama's the president, and I don't really jive with that agenda, And he goes, "Well, Sal, presidents come and go here. Every 4 or 8 years, they come and go. I'm here. What do you have to worry about?" He goes, the word used was we, not only we are here. We're here forever.
That's right.
That's how they view it. And people continue to forget that because when we get into Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, they went into a system that their attitude is, we are here entrenched for life, and you're just a revolving door. You come and go. You have no say here.
Of course. Listen, agencies are run by the people who have the power in the agency. There's a concept in the military of the E4 mafia, and that's the people who get the work done are the ones who decide what you can put any policy you want out there. You can say any general can say this is what's going to happen. But if the wrench turners and the truck drivers and the convoy providers and the security elements decide that they're going to screw your mission up, your mission is going to be screwed. And it's the same idea in federal government, although it's not like an E4 mafia. They tend to be more of like the SES mafia. This is the people that come out of, they all know each other. They've all got each other's backs. Everyone imagines that the deep state, or like that term deep state, which I despise, it's like the X-Files, right? Back in the 90s, where there's like dudes like wearing overcoats and well-dressed, and they're sitting in a dark room in New York, and they're deciding the fate of the world while smoking cigarettes with the lights off for some reason. That's not a deep state. The deep state is a bunch of people with co-aligned interests. That's like, hey, I can't have somebody go down for the same corruption that I'm involved in. I'm gonna have to do a little cover for that. We're gonna go negotiate on behalf of my guy Eric Adams over here. I'm gonna put in a good word, and I'm gonna go and make sure I present this case in the most favorable light, or I'm gonna present this prosecution as being part of that weaponization that I keep hearing so much about. They weaponize the government against him. We're gonna have to make him one of the priorities of showing how we're not political actors. We're going to show how fair we are. We're going to go do it. So you couch language. Look, you're talking about an agency, particularly the FBI, but the DOJ is the same animal. It's the bigger animal that runs it, right? It's the hand and the glove. When you talk about that, we're talking about people that run sources for a living. We're talking about people who manipulate other people, usually dumber people. That's kind of the way it has to work. You know how it is. We don't catch the smart ones, right? You catch the dumb ones. But we're talking about people that manipulate. That is their stock and trade. And so running operations, how many times have you found yourself eliciting information? You go out with a pretty girl, you want to elicit information. Are you going to just forget your whole life of experience and what you did on the street when you're playing as a cop? Did you forget how to talk to people? No, you bring those skills wherever you go. And so if you want to get your way, you have certain training and experience that's going to be effective. Think about every affidavit you've ever written. Based on my training and experience, the following things happened. That training and experience is yours forever, no matter whether they take the badge, they take the paycheck. You always have it. And so do all the people that are still in that job that have been doing it for 15 or 18 years. The difference is you were applying yours, generally speaking, going after bad guys, and they were applying theirs on how to get their career better. And so isn't it better to have a friend in the city that you're working in? Look, some of the biggest corruption in my former agency also happened in your city. That was up there, right? Like we saw what happened with McGonigal. It's not a coincidence that one of the biggest public corruption scandals in the FBI's recent history was brushed under the rug, and nobody acted like it was an incredible deal that the senior counterintelligence agent in the United States, in what is basically the #1 field office for counterintelligence, they New York and Washington field office fight for it. The #1 though, by any reasonable standard, you could make that argument. That dude was accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash in a brown baggie, like absolutely insane 1970s style overt corruption. And that dude got like a 5-year sentence that he's going to serve concurrently with some other stuff. That's batshit. That is the craziest thing ever. And it all happened in that little vortex that you guys came out of.
And the best thing you just mentioned was Charles McGonigal. Guess who was his buddy who he wrote a letter on his behalf to try to get him a leaner sentence was Tom Donlin, who ends up becoming the NYPD police commissioner. We don't mention his name because he's so insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but he was a police commissioner who got raided a week into the job.
Right. He had his phones taken and the whole deal.
He had his phones taken, and then later on, he's at the New York City Marathon. He got shoved by the then Deputy Commissioner of Public Information, Tariq Shepard, who's now running around with Andrew Cuomo because he wants the police commissioner job. He gets shoved in front of people, not only at one location, but a second one. One in Staten Island and again in Manhattan, and nothing happened to Shepard, and Donlin ends up leaving because now we have the great Jessica Tisch as police commissioner. That's a huge... I almost forgot about that, but he wrote a letter of leniency to Charles McGonigal, which shows you his judgment stinks. His integrity, he has none.
That's the nicest way of saying this. Listen, at the end of the day, the idea that there's smoke, there's fire, there's things going on. When there's so many threads coming out of one place, and look, growing up, you always heard, as goes New York, so goes the rest of the nation. Yeah. California has the same attitude. The single biggest areas. When certain places move, the nation actually necessarily follows. When 9/11 happened, America moved to a wartime footing and attitude. We tolerated a lot of crazy things in Oklahoma City that we might not have, but we saw what happened in New York City. And that was an impactful thing because Americans, whether they like it or not, they see the New York skyline and they think that has something to do with them. Now, we may hate that there's a bad gun law there. We may not just agree with the way that they do, 12-pound triggers on their clocks. There's a lot of things about New York that I don't want anything to do with. Like, I don't take a taxi cab anywhere and that, or an Uber. It's not my jam. But we do understand there's something fundamentally American. If you go back 100, 150 years, it's in like our core understanding of what this nation is about. And there's a couple of cities that have that. Like, New York has it. Chicago has it. I would say San Francisco used to have a piece of it, and Los Angeles. Those were the big ones. If you look from Europe, those are the cities that people see and they go, that's what America looks like. Maybe they think now of Dallas and Miami and some of the other bigger ones that have come up. But the idea that you had massive corruption in 2025 in a digital age, like totally analog corruption, man, like cash in brown paper bags. And it goes all the way to the top of your state government and your city government there too. That the people that are in charge of the police department, that law enforcement is so enmeshed that these people are writing like favors for each other. And that guy got a slap on the wrist for what it was. Robert Hansen did the same damn thing. And where's he at? He's in Supermax in Colorado until he died. Or did he just die? I think Hansen just died. Yeah. He was super fat when they saw him. I don't know how you get to be like a 300-pound dude in Supermax, but yeah, the world is different. Your chat's asking why I don't catch Ubers and taxis. I don't like strangers driving for me. That's why, because I'm a grown up. I'm an American. I live in a place where people own cars. That's the thing. Like, New Yorkers do not have the same experience as Americans, but we all kind of look at it because we've seen it in movies and television and so on. If New York is corrupt, what does that say about the rest of the country? If that's coming, it's either a harbinger of what's to come, right? Or it shows us what's already here and we've accepted it. And none of those things are good for me.
I got another one. This is breaking here. Suzette C. Trimmingham. So I guess she's a police officer in the NYPD. You could check her out on 50A. You can pull up her 50A. A former NYPD traffic safety, and that's her. And this former NYPD traffic safety, Mervyn Rhymes, operator of an accident victim call center, pled guilty to participating in a bribery scheme. Trimmingham provided non-public information about automobile accident victims from an NYPD database to Rhymes in exchange for bribes. Over the course of their scheme, which ran from January 2020 to June 2024, they made at least $900,000 by targeting victims and referring them to lawyers and doctors. Both defendants face a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison, with sentencing scheduled for October 8th, 2025. The case being prosecuted by the Public Corruption Unit of the U.S. Attorney's Office. So they are working. They're just not working on, Eddie and Jeffrey Madry and them.
Listen to how long that went on. I had similar cases that we worked on with my surveillance team where we were surveilling cops, corrections officers, people that were part of Metro PD in Washington, D.C. Okay, same kind of animal. And it's the same exact scheme. By the way, that scheme, folks, the non-public information scheme, it's when essentially what happens is the state or the city will set up a rule on when people can be notified and what access you can have to victims of automobile accidents. Sometimes it's a HIPAA thing where they have to like keep this stuff non-private, or so somebody gets injured. And if you can get an injury lawyer, the ambulance chaser types that we used to see on the TV in 80s, if you can get one of them a 24-hour or 48-hour head start on who's in the hospital and how they got injured and maybe who the guilty party is, then they have the ability to go out there and farm business. And so they're willing to pay for that lead. This is like OG public corruption. It goes on every single day. And so you have to have public corruption units that are doing that. You have to have agents that are working outside of, let's say, like, are you going to get NYPD to appropriately do that investigation? Or are you going to need to maybe have a federal agency that steps in and says, we don't even work for the NYPD. But when you start crossing those wires with the JTTF, right? When there's federal counterterrorism funds that come in, there's federal, Safe Streets, which is like a anti-violent crime situation. When you have the drug trafficking, the HIDTA type monies coming in, when you've got money from all these different federal task force, so you enmesh your state and your federal funds and their interests. How do you do public corruption? I would actually argue that federal, state, local task force are one of the worst things that can happen, because each one of those entities can work on their own. And when you make them all work together, you actually ruin the check and the balance of the ability to go and do the biggest thing the federal government has outside of everything else. They should be able to do state and local public corruption. Yeah. You actually want that. Like you want that as a citizen. But again, task and purpose, they're divorced from each other, because all they want to do is worry about money and cases and showing the public that they're getting work done. It's not about the net result, which is that the public is safer or better off, or that people are held accountable, and that lady would be scared. $900,000 over 4 years is actually not that much money for two people to split to deal with like felony charges. It wouldn't be worth it for me. It just wouldn't.
That's a low amount considering it's over 4 years, where, we just saw people that were doing fake cards for a mandate, and they were making millions in like a few months.
Right. You're talking about, listen, 900 grand divided across 4 years. That's what? $450,000 divided by two people. It's 125,000.
Yeah. Do a crime.
You're going to make $125,000 extra a year and face felony time. Like, you're a dummy. Instead of getting you're going to lose your pension. You're going to lose your health care. You're going to lose the job that you had. You're not going to be hired into that job ever again. You're a moron. So you're talking about dummies out there, and people should be not feeling good about trying to go do that. But again, like you said, they're doing public corruption work. They're just going after low-hanging fruit. We only catch the dumb ones. You don't catch the politically connected ones. I guarantee if that person had a powerful friend and somebody was getting paid off with some of that 125 grand a year, maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe you got to pay the right people for protection or donate to the right campaigns. Yeah,
I can tell you right now, I could almost guarantee she's not part of the Crumbs crew, and she definitely wasn't part of the Consofrito crew, because that's the untouchables. You can do whatever you want there.
That's how it works.
And but so while we're on the DOJ, I want to bring up, I'm sure you see this every day about Letitia James, who's the Attorney General in New York State. Now, the Miami Herald, and I posted this, I had just the other day wrote an article that there are now grand jury subpoenas in the case of Letitia James in Virginia in regards to her mortgage fraud. Now, I've had Joel Gilbert and Sam Anter on here numerous times discussing all their work. The mortgage fraud, it is legit. She also, apparently, there's insurance fraud. There's all kinds of things going on there. And, of course, she's associated with the self-admitted criminal mob associate up in the Bronx back when it was Consofrito around and there was human trafficking there. Yet the NYPD got a report and nothing ever happened. People still don't want, that is still the biggest crime in your face that nobody wants to talk about. There's a report taken and nobody did anything, apparently, and she's there smiling with this guy every night with every known thug and felon in New York City. So all of that wrapped up into one thing. What is your take on the entire Letitia James case? Is this all pump and circumstance? Is it are you actually going to do something with it, especially Kash Patel and all these guys talking a lot of stuff and all talk and no action, apparently?
I don't know the answer. I don't. First of all, I don't follow her enough because I'm not in New York. And what Letitia James does is basically like, it's the opposite of what I would ever expect. I won't live in New York. We actually had a discussion one time with my in-laws. They were like, could you take a job up here? It's like, I could, but I won't ever. There's no way. Like everything I own, all my guns would be a felony. There's no chance I'm ever going to move into a place that will put me in that situation. I don't trust the people that are running the state. I don't trust the people that are in an attorney general role. I sure as hell don't want to go and be underneath that at the state level. Even as a Fed, I didn't want to do that. So I don't follow it nearly as much as I possibly could. But I will tell you, it does look kind of like a tit for tat situation, doesn't it? Because when was the last time the FBI went after mortgage fraud? And is it enough that it would actually affect like political campaigns? And maybe that's the public interest. But when you've tarnished your image and you've shown that your agency is willing to swing for the fences on either side of like they were the same people that raided Donald Trump's house. They were the same people that went after others that were, considered to be right wing. If you just turn around and go after people that are on the left that hurt your feelings, you're not doing de-weaponization, which was the whole cry, depoliticizing. In fact, going after political opponents is probably the least like American thing that you can do. You should go after bad actors. You should go after people that have legitimately harmed the public trust. But if New Yorkers want to vote for some like Letitia James character and she represents them, good riddance. I just won't go to New York ever, which sucks because like I said, we had family in the area. My wife grew up in Brooklyn. He's got lots of connections to the area, and we don't ever want to go back and show our kids that. We wouldn't even want to go for a Statue of Liberty tour at this point. I got 4 little kids that are not going to learn a piece of American history that they could learn from someone who grew up in that city, and we don't want to do it. So again, it looks political from where I'm sitting simply because I watched this agency do political before. And what's the best way to prove that you're on my side, boss? It's like, hey, we're on your team, boss. We're going to go after this lady. She's sacrificial at that point, as far as I'm concerned. But did she actually do some awful things? Maybe so. And who else would be able to hold her accountable except the federal government? The problem is, I don't have any faith in the federal government the way they've operated for at least the last 10 years. You walk in there, like ever since I became aware of what they were doing, and I started in 2016. So people were like, "You signed up for corruption." It's like, no. I signed up and then I saw corruption. It's different. And there's a lot of people that don't do corruption, just like there's a lot of good cops in New York. I'm sure of it. There's also some really crappy cops, I bet. And there's some really lazy cops. And there's some people that don't know what's going on at all. They just are happy to get a paycheck. And they probably are at the top of their capabilities in life. And God bless them, like they're doing what they can do. So when you have that whole mixture of human, like we act like this is a black and white issue. I think there's probably some legitimate investigation there. She very well may have done some illegality. The problem is the process is tainted because they didn't fix the process first. Nobody fixed the process. And so you can't tell me that everything is good and now we're doing the right thing and we're back, baby. That's the one thing I hate the most. Or this is what I voted for. Like I want to do the letter meme, where the letters are all the wrong size. I want to do that because it's just nonsense. You didn't fix the underlying issue. So my faith and trust in the system is still gone. It doesn't matter who you go after, even if it's people that probably did something awful. You've discredited yourself. And how do you get that credit back? You only do so with really, really deep cuts. And it's like what I remember hearing about Greece, when they had like a currency problem. They called it austerity measures. You have to do austerity measures in your agency when you have done bad things. You got to do penance. You got to get rid of people. You got to make the bleeding start before you can mop it up and clean up and say, hey, we purged all the bad things. Think about any time you see somebody with cancer and they're going to get cut out and they're getting radiation. They look like crap, Saul. And then one day maybe they're in remission and they look like they're better again. It starts by getting worse. Because you got to get that stuff out. And you're telling me that what, DOJ is okay now? Because we've just shown you examples that we don't think it is.
No.
So I got issues with it too. And that's the best thing about being able to not be on a team. I don't have to cheer because this is what I voted for, or we're back, baby. I don't have to do that. I just go, okay, that looks crappy. That's also crappy. All of you are crappy. I wish we could de-weaponize. I wish we could dismantle the weapons system so it doesn't get used on me next.
And me and you get a lot of flack for trying to call balls and strikes
Look, bro, I got a grand jury investigation into so a grand jury subpoenaed my records. Okay. That's public knowledge now. You can find it in my X feed if people want to go find it. Google gave up my emails and my contact information and the stuff that was in my Gmail account, which I've had going back since like before I was enlisted in the military until I was like, probably since I was a teenager. They gave up my records. I don't know how far back that subpoena went. Obviously, you get to choose the dates, right? So I don't know if they were narrow or if they were more open-minded about it. But the FBI went and subpoenaed my records, and they subpoenaed, the Letitia James. So are we a one-to-one? No, but we both had things happen to us. So if they can do it to me, and I know I didn't do anything wrong, I don't know what she did wrong. I'm just saying they've discredited the process in my eyes because they also went after my X account. There's actually active lawsuits that Elon Musk is fighting with his own dollars against the subpoenas into me and my friend Garrett O'Boyle because we were FBI agents suspended forever, told we could never come back in the building and couldn't tell anybody that we were part of anything. And then guess what? They go, oh, okay. We're going to go investigate those two dudes. So Elon Musk was trying to say that you shouldn't be able to do that without like a credible allegation of criminality. And there was never a finding against us. It was all weaponization, politicization. So when I see that they did it after me, like it makes me have a lot more, I don't know, sympathy for Letitia James, and damn you for making me feel that way. Damn you, FBI, for discrediting yourself, that I have to look over and see them doing something with Mayor Eric Adams, who I don't particularly like what he has to say, or Letitia James, who seems like a tubby scumbag. It's like, I also have to give them now the benefit of the doubt because they did the same crap to me. And I know they made it up on me. What else are they willing to make up? This is why Giglio is such a big deal, by the way. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell people about that? Because like, I feel like I've been talking.
Well, no, I actually wanted to tell you, like, I guess they're saying that you look like Sean McVay.
I don't know Sean McVay. Who is that?
That's the coach, I believe, to the Rams.
Okay. I mean, it's not his fault that he's a stud. Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, he kind of looks like it a little bit.
Yeah. It looks like if I like ate another Kyle Seraphin, I could become Sean McVay.
He could be the coach. He could step in.
I'd have to bulk up a little bit to be that guy. He's got some meat on me for sure.
Yeah. No. What I was going to say is with this, first of all, is the whole FBI thing. We didn't get into that, right? Because number one, I thought you guys were going to, the suspendables, I thought were going to get their jobs back.
Well, I don't want my job back, but yeah.
At least, in theory, get your good guy letter, like, oh, we messed up, but you left in good standing. Something like that.
That would have been nice.
Cash Patel and Dan Bongino run around, do these interviews, Epstein Files. Epstein Files is such like, it's I don't know why anyone cares about this thing. The real issue with all of that is actually the trial going on right now. P. Diddy is the most important thing when it comes to human trafficking and all that. And by the way, he's best friends with Eric Adams, good friends with that self-admitted criminal mob associate. And he also is in the crypto world. The guy's connected to everyone. No one is it's like over, the trial's going on. Who cares? Epstein. And then you see Bongino, who you just mentioned him. Guy was in the NYPD for like a couple of years and a 7.5. He was in Secret Service, and as you know, Kyle, I like Secret Service. No hard feelings to you, but we viewed you as, there's a fake $100 bill. Let's call Secret Service. They come to the country.
Yeah, it's a really weird agency when it comes to like their investigative priorities, and like they just don't have an investigative role outside of this vestigial sort of treasury feature, which is it's really strange, man. It's like we're an executive protection agency that also does currency and counterfeit investigations.
Yeah, it's very like, but he became the head of this. He's like, now again, Kyle, we're very critical of him. All I see is Pam Bondi, Cash. They're always on TV, always talking. As you know, the worker bees that do all the heavy lifting don't ever go on TV and don't talk. I would like a little bit more of that, but I would like
less talk all the way. Listen, I sent Jack some stuff that might be like kind of eye-opening to your audience for a few minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Listen, I brought up the idea of Giglio, and for those that are not aware, you want to kind of explain it, and then I'm going to tell you why. Because I don't want to explain it and then tell you why it's important. You talk about Giglio for a second and why that is a crippling situation for a police officer during testimony. And I'm going to show you something that you probably haven't seen.
Well, I don't know if somebody, Jack, get the put up the meaning of Giglio so people understand, because we talk like two law enforcement guys. Put up what Giglio is so people can read it, so people understand it better. Because we talking like law enforcement terms, and we have people here that don't. You got to be like
you get a functional definition, but for a working definition, people understand that if you lie under oath, you always have to. Giglio is the requirement that you disclose a lie under oath for future testimony. And so,
people understand the technical terms is
there's probably more. There's slightly more to it, I'm sure of it. But Giglio was the case law that was established that said, should you ever perjure yourself in an official capacity, then you are now required to share that with the defense every time you go. And here's how it works, like in real terms. So I go, Sal, you were working a case in 2018. and you lied upon the stand. You said that you saw my client do this hand-to-hand transaction, but in reality, it was actually your partner who saw it, and you just read it in his case file and you substantiated it. You didn't actually see that, did you? And you go, yeah, that's correct. You disclosed that in Giglio that you had previously lied under oath. Is that correct? You go, yeah. You go, okay, cool. What other things have you lied about during this case that you're working on against my client?
Yeah,
it's
like,
devastating. It's devastating. Okay. Here's an exact example that used to exist for the FBI. This is really problematic for me. Okay. And I hate this. The FBI required people in my surveillance job to lie about their timesheets, which is a discoverable process. They would say, we're going to have you work 15 days in a row, and we don't want to pay you overtime. By the way, the FBI probably owes me like 40 or 50 grand in overtime from what I calculated over a period of 3 years, which, like, I'm not crying about it. I'm just saying they didn't pay me overtime and they were supposed to. So here's what they would do. They would book me for like 16 days in a row. I would fly into a city. We would go and watch criminals. We would go watch some sort of like, we would watch, take your pick, counterterrorism targets and so on. And we would work all these days in a row. Now, every day that you're working, you're on a surveillance log. You know how a surveillance log works. Everybody signs it. Everybody says, these are the observations that I attribute. The way that we did it in the Bureau was the log is listed. The team is listed, each of their call signs and who they were. And then every single individual observation that you made, we had one person keep the log. So it'd be like, Saul saw this, Kyle saw this, Mark saw this, Susan saw this, blah, blah, blah. So I would write them all down. And then each one of those individual agents would initial their observations that yes, that's what I saw. And then we would send it in. Now imagine you got a timesheet where you claim you didn't work on Saturday, March the 31st. Saul was off on that day. But here I have you on the surveillance log saying that you worked and you saw my subject do a hand-to-hand at a Maserati that was in a parking lot at fill-in-the-blank address associated with, known drug gang. I've got you saying that you were here doing surveillance. I've also got your signed sworn time card saying that you weren't on duty on that day.
Oh, God.
Saul, when were you lying? That's an ongoing problem, by the way. That goes on today. That's happening right now.
That case is done right there.
That's Giglio for everyone that does it. Now imagine that the director of the FBI lies under oath. How are you feeling about that?
That's disgraceful. He shouldn't be lying at all. He has nothing to hide. In
so,
fact, he's the head of the agency. That's all he is.
NYPD, could you get removed for what they call lack of candor in the FBI if you had lied under oath? Can you be removed for that?
Yeah, you'd actually be charged for that. You'd be charged for that, actually.
Okay. So I'm going to show you a couple of character flaws. Actually, so Jack's got this queued up here. This is a video of the same day that Cash was actually confirmed. This is him talking about private jets, and we've got some headlines that showed. If anybody knows, the FBI director flies around in a private jet. The problem is, I'm going to give some background on this story here real quick. This will blow some people's minds. I've never shared this with you either. So take a look at this video real quick.
Yeah.
And the only reason I took this job was because my business acumen sucks. All these guys that were on private jets. So the only way I was going to get mine was becoming the director of the FBI. And I wouldn't believe it.
Okay. So, okay. Here's the problem. The guy that's sitting in the room with him there is a guy named Michael Muldoon. Michael Muldoon and Kash Patel and I have all had dinner, and we talked about Chris Wray using the director's jet and the problems and how much money it costs and the fact that it could be a way that you could remove the guy for fraud, waste, and abuse. So let's just say that was a joke in bad taste, right? But it is kind of a pattern that I've seen since he got in. By the way, I haven't spoken to Kash Patel since he went on and got confirmed. On that day, I haven't spoken to him since that time. And we used to speak regularly. He would call me out. I wonder, and that's not like I don't care if as long as he's doing his job. But my problem was I didn't know that he had done the following. I've got a clip of him asking. It's a Dick Durbin clip, and so Jack can pull that up. It's Dick Durbin asking questions under oath about a very specific right-wing podcaster that Cash apparently appeared on 8 different times. And I find this to be. You tell me if this sounds like perjury to you. I'll let him play the clip.
You familiar with a Stu Peters? Does that name ring a bell?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you familiar with Mr. Stu Peters?
Not off the top of my head.
He made 8 separate appearances on his podcast. He promoted outrageous conspiracy theories and worked with a prominent neo-Nazi.
Okay. You know who Stu Peters is?
Oh, yes, I know. He's gone off the rails.
So I tend to agree. I don't know if he's gone off the rails. I've never given enough thought. I listened to some of the things he said and it was like, whatever, it's America. You have a right to say it, but I don't want to be on that thing. I've been invited on his podcast and I never agreed to it multiple times. No hard feelings against him. If I met him in person, I would say hello to him, but like, I'm not trying to go out there and be part of the podcast. I don't know what he represents, but it's probably not what I represent based on my basic understanding. I sent a clip over of Stu Peters refuting that claim the same day. This did not get very much coverage, but you tell me if this doesn't sound very true to you when we're talking about whether or not you know the guy. Like, how many times have you been on somebody's podcast? 8 times and you don't know the guy?
You got to know him. Yeah.
You got to know him, right?
Yeah.
By the way, I downloaded all 8 of those videos. So I have all 8. There's at least like 15 or 18 minute, 20-minute clips of him talking every single time he's wearing a different outfit. So I've confirmed that there is in fact 8 different appearances, and I have a hard file of them on my side. If Jack wants to play the video of Stu refuting that, to me, this is exactly the same story that I have. I'm going to add more to it, but like, I don't think you could be in charge of the FBI and have perjured yourself in front of the Senate. I don't think you can do that.
No, I don't think so. It's not worthy of someone in that position.
Okay, watch this. You tell me.
Clearly, Kash Patel's lying. Yeah, he absolutely does know who I am, and he's very familiar on a lot of different levels. And I'm not going to get into that right now because this guy is going through a Senate confirmation hearing. So I'm not going to get into too many personal specifics at this point, but that's flagrantly false, what he said there. And I don't want to hear this 6 million D chess stuff about how Kash Patel just has to get through this part of it. And then he just has to get in there and infiltrate so that he can root out all of the rats and the Jews and, the globalists. No, that's not what's happening here. Okay. He's doing what his people do. It's just inherently in them to lie and be deceitful. And he's lying. He didn't say, yeah, I know Stu Peters. As a matter of fact, I know Stu Peters well enough that my organization that I founded called Fight with Cash, which was designed to protect people against defamation by the media, real defamation, not the ones that Greenblatt is into, real defamation like at the hands of the Rolling Stone, who made up a story out of whole cloth and then attributed a quote, just blindly wrote this quote out of midair, something that I never ever said before, and then published it with quotation marks around it and then said, Stu Peters said. I never said it. And we proved that I never said it. And so Fight with Cash came to the aid of Stu Peters and the Stu Peters show because of Kash Patel personally, who personally knew me because of multiple appearances on this program. And then we exchanged contact information and we directly text via personal cell phones constantly. And we're on the phone with each other as Fight with Cash was hiring a team of attorneys.
That's good right there.
To represent Stu.
What do you think about that? Does that guy sound like he's telling you the truth?
Yeah. They say a broken clock is right twice a day. So kind of like Nick Fuentes, another guy I don't follow. And truth be told, I was on Stu Peters' show one time, a long time ago when I first got terminated. And that was in 2022. He's really gone a different route in the last 3 years.
Look, you heard it in his statement there. He was talking about Jews. He's talking about that's what they do. That's what those people do. He's talking about Indians there. So he's cutting for an audience of people that have kind of a bigoted worldview. I don't think they're nearly as fair-minded as you and I are trying to be right now. And like, there's people who do dumb things of every race. But anyway, end of the day, none of that's really relevant. What's relevant is it probably looks bad to be on that podcast 8 times when you're going through a Senate confirmation hearing, but so what? You did it.
Yeah.
Look, we've all got things that we've done, and you got to admit it. If somebody asks you under oath, you just say the truth, and it's like, fine.
You say the truth, yeah.
And look, my buddy, my former producer, Ryan Matta, is a good guy. He's a good person. Like, we spent time around each other. He's got some real weird ideas. He thinks the Jews are in charge of everything. What else? It's like, look, I don't care what he said. I didn't say that. So you can't hold me accountable for somebody else's opinion. I certainly don't divorce my friends or cut them off simply because we have a difference of opinion about some things, or they might hold some bigoted view that I find out after the fact. Like, who cares? What does that have to do with me?
Nothing.
Nothing. If you have credibility, if you have the ability to be an honest human being that just says, yeah, all human beings have flaws, and that sounds like one of his. It has nothing to do with my perspective. You never heard me say that. Association is not guilt, right? So I want to add this to that. Here's that capture that we talked about, right? So I sent a couple of other I'm looking off screen here to try to figure out what videos I sent over. There's an additional video that I sent over And by the way, for full disclosure, I also have an additional question that was asked by Cory Booker, who I'm no fan of, right? He's the New Jersey senator.
Yeah, he's a New Jersey senator. Yeah.
I'm no fan of, Spartacus. No fan of that guy. But Cory Booker asked questions directly of Kash Patel during his confirmation process and said, did you help get somebody fired? And I had Kash Patel directly tell me via text message that he did. And then he said no to Cory Booker. That's problematic. And by the way, it's not just me. There were other people on that text thread too. So we can, and I may or may not have saved those text messages. So when we're talking about, these are credible and appreciable understandings of like perjury. You've lied under oath, and not just like while you were doing the job, you lied to get the job. Imagine lying to get into a position of public trust and people finding out. Like, you're done.
They got to hang that over him, which
They
makes
can hang it over him forever. Let me show you another thing that shows me that the bureau, the institution, the agency runs the director and not vice versa. This is why these political machines are so scary, because we talked about it earlier. It's not cigarette smoking men. It's regular people like you. What did you say? They said, we're going to be here.
We're going to be here. Yeah.
Let me give you an example of that. Let me go to, there's it's called Cash Recruiting, Jack. If you want to pull up that video, Cash Recruiting. Whenever the director starts getting into hot water and says like, people are like, you're doing a crap job. Like, you're not doing the job we hired you to do. You know what they lean on? They talk about recruiting. This was his most recent interview where he's talking to Brett Baer. Watch this. You ready?
Yeah. Recruiting.
This is where an FBI agent or analyst starts their journey, right?
Absolutely. First grade facilities that we are trying to dedicate to the men and women who want to join the FBI need some upgrading, as well as standards that we need them to meet the violent crime. And all of that is engineered right here in Quantico, Virginia. And we're thrilled that you're coming here for behind the scenes.
Yeah. So applications to be an FBI agent, back in March, it was about 5,600. The last time the Bureau saw monthly figures like this was back in April 2016. But you're seeing big numbers.
We're seeing huge numbers, and I think that's in large part to the administration's response on which way the FBI wants to go. Last year alone, the average for per month application was about 2,500 applicants per month. The first 2 full months of applicants we've had since I've been in the seat, we're at 5,700 applicants a month. So that shows me there's an excitement for the American citizen to join the Bureau.
Okay, cut it right there. Go to Ray 2019 talking about, guess what? Recruiting, because recruiting is what the FBI tells the director you can hide behind, showing that we're doing a good job. It doesn't say anything about the economy or that the paycheck is really good. What it must say is that you're doing a great job. Directors hide behind this. I got Chris Ray doing it in 2019. Whenever you're ready to pull this up, and you'll see this is a common thing. So this is from the 2 years into Trump's term, right? Or 2 years in. Go ahead.
You know that since October, our special agent recruiting, we have more special agent applicants since October than we had all of the prior year, which shows a significant uptick in the enthusiasm that people have about wanting to dedicate their careers and put their lives on the line working for the FBI. But it's not just agents. You know, we're recruiting computer scientists, data analysts, engineers.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you guys get the point, right? So when you're attacked, just hide behind recruiting. I got another one for you. This one comes from 2024. This is Eli Crane questioning him, saying, hey, you're doing a crap job. You're under oath right now. How come you guys are doing a crap job on all the things that we consider weaponized? And so you got that Eli Crane clip, and he goes exactly to the same well. I don't know who's telling him, but I guarantee you the same people are telling him that we're telling Chris Ray are now telling Kash Patel the same deal. So watch this. Check this out. Tell me it's not the same energy.
Do you find it interesting how many whistleblowers there are right now from your organization coming forward and testifying to Congress about the conduct of the FBI and how they no longer even want to work for the FBI? They're willing to risk everything, including their livelihood, to come and talk to Congress about what they perceive to be a change in the culture at the FBI.
Certainly, I respect the role of whistleblowers in our system. It's an important part of the way our system of government works. When it comes to the culture of the FBI, I'm very proud of our 38,000 people. I think you will be relieved to know that the number of people applying to be special agents from the state of Arizona has gone up over 135% over the last 5 years. And the view that you've just described, I don't think matches.
It's always recruiting, Kyle. It's all, go back to the well.
My buddy Steve Friend says exactly the same thing. He goes, imagine if you had a restaurant that paid like $20 an hour when everybody else was making like $3.75 an hour as a waiter. So You go, hey, Sal, your restaurant, it food poisons a lot of people. We've had 25 people end up in the emergency room because of your uncooked meat. It seems like you got a real problem there. And you go, listen, bro, I got no problem recruiting waiters. People want to come work for me and wait tables at my place. There's nothing wrong with the food. We're not talking about the same thing, but it's interesting. Like I said, I don't think Kash Patel looked around and said, what is the cover story here? I bet we're doing a really good job recruiting. Somebody is inside that agency feeding that thing up like, hey, you want to say you're doing a great job? Talk about recruiting. Recruiting numbers are up. And it's the same person that was whispering in Chris Ray's ear in 2019. They've been there for 7 years. They've now outlasted Chris Ray, right? They outlasted, who came in after that? Paula Bate.
Right.
Then they outlasted Brian Driscoll as the acting, and now Kash Patel. Those people have been in there for several. They probably existed before, back when Comey, they were probably hired under Comey or maybe even before under Mueller. So you see this institutional rot. I got one more example of it because it's just fun, and I just think you'll get a kick out of it. I know you haven't seen this. Go to new headquarters is unsafe. Apparently, it's not just lean on recruiting when you want the thing that you want. And by the way, the FBI really, really wants a new building. Do you think that people that are agents that are working give a shit what the building looks like? No. Headquarters peoples do. Administrators do. Watch this little thing. This is from my buddy Mike Howell over at the Oversight Project.
So what are your colleagues saying about this, that you're going to get out of the Hoover building?
We need a new headquarters very, very badly.
New headquarters proposal that we have.
This FBI is leaving the Hoover building.
He just gave up a big nugget.
We
there.
want
For about a decade now, the FBI has been working on plans to move various functions and headcount to out of the National Capital Region.
If our people are going to be safe,
because this building is unsafe,
be effective, and if we're going to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money,
and being good stewards of the taxpayer dollars,
we got to get them all in a modern, safe, efficient FBI headquarters.
We're going to give you a building that's commensurate with that. And that's not this place.
And so there is a big sum asked for in our budget to support that.
We're always going to fight for our personnel and for as much money as we can get.
He just gave up a big nugget.
We
there.
want.
Big nugget. Bro. Oh, God. You know, Kyle, you know what this sounds like? When the NYPD has issues like corruption, all that stuff, they go out there and go, crime is down, even though it's not. It's clearly not. The chart, everything is always, they're telling you crime's down. So they have these little crime zones. They call them impact zones. They like reinvent the wheel. It's all BS. Kyle. All the crime is through the roof. All the 7 majors. It's a 30% rise under Eric Adams and continuous. But they'll tell you crime is down. It's like the mantra. And here it's recruiting.
Listen, all of this stuff is the same. Like every animal, this is the tail wagging the dog. But in reality, it's just the dog wagging the tail. Let's be real. The tail in this case, because the dog is the meat of the organization. That's the meat. Like that, the dog is the creature. The tail's just a little piece. The tail is your mayor. It's your police commissioner. It's the people that are allowed to be up at the top level that are going to go out there and manage it. It's the people that are going to get supported. It's the same thing as the FBI director and so on. The animal is what it does. My buddy says this. He says systems are what they do, right? Agencies are the results that they produce. If your agency doesn't produce safer streets and a cleaner, New York City, then your agency is not in the business of creating a crime-free city or doing law enforcement. It's in the business of something else, collecting paychecks, benefiting the sergeant's benevolence funds, which seem to be benevolent to themselves only, this kind of thing. If an agency suddenly loses grip where they are no longer serving the mission and that task that they're involved in is something completely different than the purpose, then the purpose is what it does. It enriches certain people. It allows for certain people to rise. It protects certain people. The same thing is true at the local level. The same thing is true at the federal level. You can see what a system is. A system is whatever it is that it does. And the FBI serves itself. It's its own master. I think the NYPD is big enough. It's bigger than the FBI at this point, right? I mean, there's like what? How many sworn? 30-something thousand?
Allegedly is over 30,000. I think active, there's probably totally under 30,000. They don't want to tell you that because they keep people on the books or there's other scams they do. But as an agency, it's bigger. It's the largest law enforcement agency in the world. But it's kind of mirrors the FBI just in a different way, doing stupid things and saying dumb things.
and
like
serving itself. It serves itself. Like I said, you can cut the crime statistics and look at a very narrow window or a very specific area and say, look, it's better in these areas that we've focused on, which, by the way, are the only places where we're being successful. Game on, you win. You're doing PR work instead of doing LE work. And you can do that. It's successful for a while until people like end up getting mugged in places where they think this is not a mugging zone. This is supposed to be a safe place. This used to be a nice neighborhood, Sal. People used to have kids here and all that. And then you watch it turn. America has seen a lot of that. Like they saw a lot of that in 2020, where areas that used to be really nice suddenly were completely unruly and seemed like they didn't care about rule of law. It didn't happen overnight. It happened because people were asleep at the wheel. Anyway, I just think it's fun when you can see these people using words of their handlers. That's the way that we would call it in law enforcement, right? Or in the intelligence world, you talk about handlers. Who's handling Eric Adams? Who's handling the people that allow the folks that are going to climb the ladder at NYPD? And who's handling the people that are running the FBI? The answer is the people that benefit from it. The system benefits from what it does. And what it does is protect people in the system. We keep seeing it. So anyway, that's my argument to you. Like I saw someone say this is like the Kyle Seraphin show. I just brought those to you because I want to share it with a wider audience. We're all paying for it. That's why it matters. We all pay for it. You pay for it in your taxes, and so do I.
Yeah. And you know what it's actually called? Somebody, Neil S. says public perception management. That's actually what Marlon Bethel, he's in the comments part of Fine Stuff Filtered also. He always says it's a perception management program is what NYPD, Eric Adams, Trump's, DOJ, all the same. Everybody has that perception management. It's not like you and I throwing things back and forth, and we stand by our conviction. And I don't care how you perceive it is what it is. Here's the facts. Here's the documents. Yeah, he's talking about recruiting. He's talking about, oh, we're getting a new facility. That I want to see that. But we have yet to see. Where are the blueprints? Where is any document that says the FBI is moving from the Hoover building? You don't have anything yet.
No, but you know what we actually are hearing? Apparently, they might be moving into the Reagan building. They're going to move next to DOJ, but they are actually like actively scouting and going to do this sort of thing. And they've been wanting to do this for a very long time. As you said, like, you can't tell me that you're going to come in and dismantle this organization and turn it all on its head when it's going to just get everything it always wanted. All the people that worked in the Hoover building wanted to work in a different building. The Hoover building, for as ugly as it is, and it is ugly, it's actually like, dude, the gym facility that they have an outdoor gym in Washington, D.C. that we used to jog over to go use. It's like 14 or 24 pull-up bars and a huge pull-up grid. They got a sprinting track that's outdoors. It's it's inside the building, but it's on an outdoor like terrace, 3 stories above. It's actually kind of awesome for what that is. There's weightlifting out there. There's like benches, there's flat benches, there's deadlifting platforms. There's all these powerlifting places. They've got like a pretty cable thing. And then it's an office building. So it's ugly. It's a federal office building. To cry about having to go to work in an office building for the federal government when you work for the federal government, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And it's not like the federal government's really good at doing any of their space. And by the way, none of those people said, hey, send me down to Huntsville, Alabama, because they've got a $2 billion facility they built up there. And they could send everybody down there. No, they want to live in D.C. near all the things, but they want to live in a nicer building. You heard them. We want a building that looks commensurate with the premier law enforcement agency. They're fluffing themselves. It's gross. I mean, this is a masturbatorial sort of solution to a problem that doesn't really exist. Why do the American people need to pay for a new building? Why?
You know why? They want it. They want to be part of the power structure, but they also want to be self-serving.
They want to look like they want to look like they've always felt about themselves. We deserve better than this. Okay. And it's kind of like what we talked about before we got started. When people start making a certain salary, they start thinking about themselves in a certain way. Most cops in this country make less than $60,000 a year. Mm-hmm. They bust their ass for it. There's a lot of volunteer cops out there or work part-time that are either, auxiliary deputies and so on. There's a lot of people in this country. Same thing with firefighters. From what I remember, if my memory serves, because I was a paramedic for a while, I think the majority of fire departments are volunteer in this country. They don't make a penny, and they don't have professional staff doing it, and they still get along and do the work that needs to be done. So at some point in time, you start thinking that you are the person that gets paid that sort of thing. It's kind of gross.
So what would you grade this whole regime right now, whether it be Pam Bondi and the DOJ or Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and the FBI? Because coming in, you were promised one thing, and so far, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if we're just looking at DOJ and the entities underneath it, it's like a C or a C minus. It just hasn't had the change that was out there. I see parts of this administration that are doing a great job, that I think are doing a great job. I think the uphill battle and the danger of fighting a bigger animal, like over at DOD, I think that's pretty decent. I think they're starting to move policies into place. We're starting to say we're going to try to recruit new warfighters that actually want to be warfighters. So that marketing and that messaging is important, because you're talking about millions of employees under DOD. DOJ is a different animal. FBI is a different animal. You can't just say we want to recruit people that want to do HRT and want to be like tactical operators. If you showed what an FBI agent's job really, how about honesty in recruiting? The military's job is to hurt people and break stuff. The FBI's job is to investigate people. It's not sexy all the time. It's rarely sexy. Like 1% of your job is running out and doing search warrants and slapping cuffs on people. 95% of your job is probably like doing the grunt work of reading files and doing interviews and writing up, legal process. And then a small part of it, like a bigger part of it than it should be, is administrative garbage, like jumping through hoops to be able to get the boss happy and doing all this back end admin. They're never going to show you that video. They're going to show people like rappelling out of helicopters. Like number of helicopter rappels Kyle Seraphin did out of the FBI in 6 years, 0. I rode in a Blackhawk a couple times. I did emergency medical work where we were doing some training, but most of it was training based. It's just not real to recruit people. But the actual work of doing the military, like a lot of it is kicking doors and shooting, and you have to train for that. And they do real world operations like that. So I give the DOJ end of it like a C minus, because there are parts of it that are really good. Like what Harmeet Dillon has come in and done and started getting rid of like hundreds of people, saying that the guns are a civil liberty. Like I love that. I'm all for it. So I don't lump any big organization. I look at what individual parts are doing. I don't think the FBI is doing a great job, but there are parts of it that are decent. The idea that they've added child sex trafficking to it, it's not bad. It's not a bad thing to start focusing on things that Americans think the FBI does. The problem is you have to get rid of the intel component, and they haven't done that. So if you're not going to fix the bad, if you're only going to like add a couple of pieces of good that do good PR spin, then you get a C minus, right? Like you don't get a great grade. They could turn it around, but the problem is the people that are running this, as demonstrated by some of those clips, is that it doesn't feel like that they don't have a vested interest in changing. The FBI doesn't want to change. No. We're going to be here long after you're gone, Saul. That's what they told you.
Yep.
That's what they're at.
That's the entire MO of the DOJ and the FBI. Yeah. We're here long after President so-and-so. They're entrenched, and that's why I said, and this is the thing, and I gave Trump originally like a B minus or like a B. And I thought after he's going to think about pardoning P. Diddy, that really dropped, because like I've had enough of hearing stupid rhetoric. Just stick to what you're supposed to be doing. Don't interfere in cases, because that's what your opponent and that other regime prior used to do. So I kind of give him less than a B. He's in the C's and the D's now, or he's in like in the C's, C plus, C minus in there. But with the way the DOJ and all these people are running, you have to be willing to go in there, Kyle. And first day, I'm Kash Patel or whoever. Everyone that has worked under the previous administration, I expect your resignation. If not, I have now started the Office to Stop Russian Collusion. It's in Alaska, and it actually is facing Russia. That's where you'll all be working.
I'd put them in Guam, just saying. I'd put them in Guam, or I'd put them in Puerto Rico, because here's the thing. Alaska is beautiful, and it's really nice, and they got a nice office up there. Like when I went up there, I really liked Alaska and Anchorage. So I don't want to put people in places that I think are cool to go. Like I don't want to put them in Montana, but I don't want to go to Puerto Rico. That doesn't sound nice to me. So we're going to create the office in the middle. There's going to be an RA in the middle of the island in Puerto Rico. We're going to put you in an American territory, or we're going to put you on Guam and try to make the thing flip over, like Hank Johnson said. We're going to put you and make the island capsize. We're going to put you on the opposite side to counterbalance out all those Marines, and then just send a bunch of 6-figure salaries of people whose job it is to show up until they decide to. Here's what would really happen, by the way, if you did that. Those people would retire. They quit.
That is the whole point.
Yes, that's the point.
You have to flip the table over, kind of like what Jesus did the one time we read about him getting. What was he upset about? They were selling things and goods. He flipped the table over.
That's
right. The same thing has to be done here. You have to come in as the director or whatever and say, everybody who worked previously under this guy, you're gone. If you don't like it, we have an office for you. It's in Guam. It's in Alaska. Take it up. Take it or leave it. I
You
don't
can
care.
ask people nicely, man. I mean, Saul, you can ask people nicely. You say, "Look, we're going to go in a different direction than what you guys are probably comfortable with. We'd love to see your retirement papers. We're going to approve them all. You're all good to go. By the way, if you choose not to, we want to let you know we have reassigned you to a very critical project, and it is in fill in the blank place, and it's not near here. So you're going to have to do a family move. The report date is 90 days from today." Every single FBI senior agent, every single FBI agent, period, and all the intelligence analysts, they all sign what's called a mobility agreement. That's not something you get in local law enforcement. We can move you to any office anywhere in the country on the needs of the Bureau. We just have to make the arrangements financially to do so. So we'll buy your old house and move you out there on our cost. So it's not a bad gig, but that's where you're going to go. Do you want to go somewhere else? And a lot of these people want to stay in New York. They want to stay in Newark. They want to stay in that little that vortex of power, or they want to stay in the triangle, which is Boston. I'm sorry, not Boston. It's Baltimore, Washington Field Office, headquarters, Manassas, and I think Richmond kind of plays into there as well. You could also play another game, because inside the FBI, this mobility agreement says that they can assign you to any office report location within a 50-mile radius of where you're assigned originally. You know what's in 50 miles of Washington, D.C.'s Hoover building? Baltimore field office.
Yeah.
So I could say, oh, you know what, Saul, you've been showing up. You live in Washington, D.C. You've been showing up at work, and it's 5 blocks walk from your house. You get your Starbucks, you come in. You're actually going to go to Baltimore every day today. From now on, you're going to report to Baltimore. Right up until I get bored of doing that, then I'm going to have you go down to Fredericksburg, which is about 47 miles south of Washington, D.C. Now I'm going to have you go out to Manassas. That's 38 miles out to the west. And I'm going to have you ping pong ball, and I'm just going to assign you to a different office every couple of weeks. So you never are going to the same place. We're just going to move your desk until you get the idea that you're no longer welcome here. They could have done stuff like this. By the way, we had all these plans in the work. They were all drafted up. They were all put in a PowerPoint. They're all 100% legal options that you can use to squeeze people out under FBI's current existing HR policies without even fudging anything. The opportunity exists for you to squeeze people if you don't want them to be part of your administration, or you could let them tell you that recruiting numbers are up and that we need a new building because it's unsafe. And then you could go with that. We saw who won. We saw who won that entrenched battle, and the status quo is undefeated. The FBI beat the director as usual, because the other guys Comey and Ray weren't saying their words. Everyone wants to blame them, but I give them a lot more grace than a lot of people, because I know that the animal captures the director every time. They bubble wrap him up. They tell him what's good. Game over. Yeah. We lost. America lost. That's the thing.
It's a shame. I had a lot of hope for Kash Patel. You knew him. I met him. I don't know. I can't believe. I'm really taken back by what Dan Bongino. I always knew that was always going to be what it is. I always knew that.
Listen, Dan had such a narrow path for success, and I want to be fair, because Dan was pretty crappy to me, and so there's that personal situation. But at the end of the day, I was praying for his success, because Dan Bongino winning at the FBI is a win for America. It's a win for me personally, but it's a win for America. So I won't hold that against him. If he was winning, I would be celebrating it. I would love to see that, and I don't care. He would be completely redeemed in my eyes. It's like if you had a friend that was he betrayed you, maybe went out with a girl that you were trying to date or something like that, but then he saved your family member's life. He's still okay in my book at that point. If he had gone and fixed the FBI, Dan would be a legend to me. And we put a picture of it with a little altar and some candles, I'm telling you, if he had done it, it would have been so important. And the only way he was going to be successful was this very, very narrow possibility, which is that he was not corrupted by the existing FBI, because this is something people don't understand. The FBI is theoretically run by the director, but it's really not. The FBI runs the director. The director is sort of the public-facing policy, gives people a strategic vision, says nice things, and goes to meeting and represents as a sub-cabinet level official. The actual animal is run by the deputy director. Usually the deputy director has 20 plus years in. That's a long-term, worked their way up from the bottom, knows every animal there, went to Quantico with most of the people that are in management, used to work in different field offices where they used to know all the people, briefed all the big cases, all that crap. So your deputy director usually knows the Bureau inside and out, and therefore they represent the FBI very aggressively. If you bring in an outside animal like a Dan Bongino, maybe you get to escape that trap. The only way that happens, though, is Dan has to hire in a bunch of retired guys that understand the issues, knows where all the evil is, and is not going to let him get ensnared by it. But he didn't. He went and hung out with the New York Mafia, which is the people that came out of the New York field office, the same people that promoted Charlie McGonigal, who took bags of cash. Those people all got in there. And if you saw James Dennehy, who had the bagpipe ceremony when he was walked out of the office, fought back against Kash Patel on the Epstein file, all this crap, it all circles out of these two power vortexes of New York City and the New York FBI and Washington, D.C., and the Washington Field / headquarters group. These people are that entrenched deep state. And you can't fix it by taking 1,500 of those 10 or 20 or 30,000 people. Like the bulk of the FBI's workforce, like the single biggest collection by percentage is Washington, D.C. And then the second biggest chunk of it is like New York Field. So we're screwed. And as your commenter says, as KB just said, it's over when Dan Bongino, who we theoretically elected or not elected, but we wanted him appointed because he's a New York guy. He was a street cop. He's a tough guy. He was a Secret Service dude. He carried a gun for a living. He asked for 20 dudes in a security detail, and they're allegedly looking for a new plane so that he can fly around in a private jet because Podcast Dan got comfortable with private jets, which he said very publicly on Timcast. So you thought you were getting a guy that was one thing. Like if they gave you that job, there's no way you're going to ask for a protective detail.
No.
You get one guy. You get one guy who's he's like your buddy and he watches your back. The two of you get to go places. How much danger is Dan Bongino in real life? Like we know what lefties will look like. Is he in more danger than when he was in the podcast? He's certainly at a lower priority position.
I tell you,
the whole FBI behind him.
And KB says, Dan became the Eric Adams of the FBI. Hey, I was in law enforcement.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's sad, man. Because look, I didn't want that to be the case. Like all personal grievances aside, and I'm saying this very sincerely. This is not false humility. Like if he had saved it, if he had done the job that he had predicted that he said he was going to go do, he's a freaking hero to my book, no matter what he said about me. Period. I'm telling you, the analogy is 1-to-1. Stole your girlfriend, saved your sister's life. You saved the life. All other debts are forgiven. Period.
Yeah.
That's
my I've had you on for quite a while, probably a lot longer than you want to be on. I really appreciate it because we got a lot of subject matter in here. A lot of things people are asking about behind the scenes. The one last thing I was going to mention, I don't know if you do like sports, but obviously I'm a Met fan. We won last night. I'm a big Met fan. We beat the Dodgers, and I did notice that the Miami Marlins play. I go to the stadium, Kyle, and Lone Depot Park is empty all the time. It was absolutely empty last night for the Rocky game. It's pathetic. It looks like a minor league team.
Yeah.
But I want to see that flourish though, because we need local things. Get our mind off this stuff. The big thing I wanted to talk about was look at the stadium.
Oh, it's brutal.
That is brutal. And this is Miami. It's Hialeah. You're in Lone Depot Park. It's this beautiful stadium. It's got a roof. It's like a million things to do there. The area doesn't have much. They need development in the area, but to have an empty stadium, they should sweep the Rockies there so bad. Instead, they have nobody there. It's quite sad.
That is sad.
But soccer. I'm a big Inter Milan fan. We had this final. They choked this weekend, lost 5-0 to PSG. It was a disaster. The game was a disaster. Today, the coach, Simone Inzaghi, he left. He's going to Saudi Arabia to go pay $50 million a year contract. The coach, great. Don't let the door hit you on your way out because you played terrible. Inter looked old. The game was atrocious, but that's not the big point here, Kyle. The streets of Paris after this was what we always see. There were these migrants running around, and North African migrants, beating the hell out of people, breaking cars. They've ripped these females out of a car. One guy hit someone on a bike and killed him, and it just took off. It was just pure chaos in the street. And Macron never said anything about this. I mean, look at this. This is some of the video. This is right after the game. This is in Paris after PSG, who beat Inter Milan 5-0. This is how they celebrate, by throwing things, breaking things. Look at him in the street. This is animalistic behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if unvetted illegal immigrants have been flooded this country, okay, where do you think they come from? People like this. Oh, that third world, what you're seeing in Paris, that's what's coming to America. If you don't stop this, and if you have a problem with the way they're handling things, and listen, I'm all for the working people. I don't think we show up to a farm in a UPS outfit saying, hey, I'm here to give you a package, and they lock up all the workers there. I'm talking about gangbangers. Who do you think these people are running around with sticks, beating people, breaking car windows? Kyle, this was like a scene out of Mad Max from Thunderdome.
Here's the thing, though. That's coming to a city near you, especially because most cities in America vote pretty aggressively blue. Like you voted for tolerance. You voted for defunding cops. You voted for not letting like good law enforcement operations happen where they need to. Yeah, you're going to see that. You know where you're not going to see that? You're not going to see that out where I live in Texas. You're going to get shot if you pull that nonsense, because in America, the broad swath of America, the map that's red that voted overwhelmingly for a Donald Trump, not that Donald Trump's a savior, but just a representation of people who've had enough. You're going to find that if you can own a gun, you're not going to see what happened in Boulder. You're not going to see some dude with a weed sprayer out there pumping gasoline onto like some 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old Jewish people and lighting them on fire. Man, you start spraying gasoline on strangers in my neighborhood, I'm smoking you right there. And I'm empowered to by my state, because at least we all understand, hey, that's not what we signed up for. Like, we don't have to agree on all things. We don't have to agree on how we teach our kids or what church we want to go to, or if you want to go to an Episcopal church or whatever, and I'm going to go to my Catholic church and you want to go to a synagogue. Like, it doesn't matter. You can't pump gasoline on people and light them on fire with nobody reacting. Was there not a grown man there that knows how to throw a punch? I'm just asking, because I saw those videos and it's the same crap you see in Paris. You know what looks pretty like unlikely? When you're driving the truck that I have, I've got an F-250, a big diesel, right? With a big like cow, you know, what do they call it? Like a cow catcher on the front of it.
Yeah.
Brother, you're not going to be running out in the street if I'm coming at you. I can spin and get rubber in all four wheels and four-wheel drive with the amount of torque that I have coming out of my engine. You want to go and stand in the road? Fine. You should get run over. Instead, what you saw is a passive victim type population. It's in Europe. It's in a lot of our major American cities. People have been like, they've been so divorced from reality because they think that corrupt law enforcement agency is going to go out there and take care of them. They're waiting for the cops to show up, aren't they? I mean, why are they waiting in their cars? They're waiting for some institution to save them because they are not empowered to do it themselves. And so anyway, that's why I say, end of the day, it's going to be people who are just fed up that's going to change this thing, because you're not going to get saved by the FBI. You're not going to get saved by the NYPD. You're not going to get saved by the Dallas PD. You're not going to get saved by any individual cop. They're supposed to come out and stop people who have already broken the law. You're not going to be able to find proactive stuff. And no one's going to find all these people in advance. They're already deporting at lower levels than Obama did in his second term. Just saying. For all the crying that you're hearing in the media, for all the success, they're still not doing as much as you saw in 2012, 2013.
I said this, people they kick the can on the road, but you don't have enough immigration judges. And in order to do all this deportation, how many agents do you have? You don't, it's going to cost billions. You don't have this. It's a lot of, winking, nodding. I'm giving you something. It's like Modani in New York City saying, I'm going to give you free rent, free. You're not giving anything free. It's all nonsense. It's BS. Just That's like you're not going to deport everyone. And what I see is a little bit of an abuse there, the way they're handling that. And at the same time, he's trying to, whatever number they set, they want. And that's almost like NYPD stuff, like broken windows. It's all about numbers, and it shouldn't be. Right. But you're not going to deport all these people. And then we see the issues of what happened. First in Boulder, and then the past incident with the Jewish embassy in D.C. with that other site.
The museum. By the way, that museum, I didn't realize what that museum was. It's not just like near the FBI's Washington field office. It shares an intersection with the FBI's Washington field office where I used to work. Oh. It is on the southeast corner of a T intersection, or like a regular cross intersection. So North-South Street is 3rd Street. It's on the southeast corner, and the Washington field office is on the northwest corner of it. They literally, the Steve Jensen, who ran the domestic terrorism operations section and was a J6 like prosecutor, he was the one who pushed the J6 policies. His office looks onto the front step of that Jewish museum. It's right across the street, and you can't make it up. Like, they couldn't even stop that there. So stop waiting for your law enforcement agencies to do pre-crime. You can't predict what people are going to do, just like I can't. Some guys are going to fight you and you didn't expect it. Some guys are going to surrender like a little daisy, and you had no idea they were just going to give up. They look like bad dudes. They look like they were going to fight you right up until you walk up and they turn around and put their hands up. So you have no idea what's in the human heart. We stop acting like these people are. You have no idea that people are going to riot or not riot. No one's going to come save us. It's up to us at this point. And the sad thing is, a lot of people are still waiting. Like, go out and train, go out and figure out physical fitness. Don't wait for the Sergeant's Benevolence Foundation to go and fix your law enforcement agency. It's not going to do it. All you can do is bring your message to the American people. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of it just comes down to us praying. I think we hit a speed bump with Donald Trump, so I'm good for that. But I don't think we solved the problem. Until unless we see something drastically different change, This was a application of the brakes.
It was a Band-Aid.
Yeah, it always is. Yeah.
So,
And especially because, like I said, that legislature's not doing the job that we thought that they might do.
Yeah, right.
Or maybe hoped you might do, because if we're being honest, we knew that wasn't going to be the case. I knew it wasn't going to be the case.
Terrible. Kyle, this has been
The
a
worst.
great. You gave me 2 hours. It was just unbelievable stuff here. Where can people find you and see your show? I know it's on every morning. Let my audience know.
Yeah. No, we're on every morning on YouTube. It's youtube.com/@Kyle Seraphin. On Rumble, it's rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. On X, it's @Kyle Seraphin as well. Spotify, you can get it by just going to KyleSeraphinShow.com. It'll redirect you to Spotify. You get audio and video. There's 3 paid ads total in the whole thing, so you're not going to get any interruptions if you want to go over there. But we appreciate anybody who wants to follow us. We're growing everywhere. We do some really neat conversations. We got a good one with Steve Baker that was talking about Corey Mills. It's going to be relevant to Florida people. And transplants from New York. They want to hear the New York corruption that's gone down to Florida. That's always nice to see. And then we talked to Matt Strickland recently too, who is an outstanding sort of human being who knew what it looked like to stand against any administration that was doing the wrong thing, Biden or Trump. He just got removed from his job at DHS. So that was one of my more recent interviews too. Worth people's time.
That's good. Then we like being kind of like the spotlight, people that are whistleblowers, corruption. That's what's important. Don't get lost in the translation, because remember what they told me. Sal, we're here. And we don't care who the president is. We're always here because no one's willing to take out the problem. Kyle, thanks for coming on the show. Thank you for giving me your 2 hours here. This was amazing. Everyone else out there, 8:05 live tomorrow, right here on X, on YouTube and Rumble. Find us Unfiltered. John and Eric will be back at you. 17:05, 5:05 Eastern. You could check out Executive Perspective with Rob Lukash and Ron Layson. They'll be on. Please don't forget about them. They're going to have some good stuff. I don't know exactly who the guest is going to be on. I know John and Eric will be interviewing anyone. It's good to see Eric back, by the way, once again. To everyone else out there, thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the comments, whether they were good or bad. I said, Dr. Filger says, excellent show, Sal. Keep fighting a good fight. Kyle, always good. See you tomorrow morning on the Kyle Seraphin Show. That's right. Do check out Kyle Seraphin's show in the morning. Oh, look at this. The Knicks. Before we leave, the New York Knicks are relieving Tom Thibodeau of his duties as head coach, sources tell ESPN. Thibodeau led the Knicks to their first Eastern Finals in 25 years, made the playoffs in 4 or 5 years, and led the Knicks to consecutive 50-win season for the first time since the 90s. But they got destroyed in 6 games. So that we'll end on that note. The Knicks, once again, 1973. We'll scream that from the Raptors. That's the last time they've won. They will never win again. They're a cursed franchise. And by the way, they never have a Jewish Heritage Month, an Italian Heritage Month. They never had that stuff. So you need to check how you run that organization, because it sounds a lot like New York City in general. So goodbye, Knicks. Good riddance. We'll see what Indiana does in the finals, Kyle. That's what I got to say. So,
all right, buddy.
Kyle, signing off from Texas. I myself signing off from Florida, because once again, as we know, Florida is a sunny place for shady people.
So this is a biblical moment. You know, when Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid?